Hello everybody! I'm Hope and welcome back to another episode of Let's Play Witch on the Holy Night! Previously, we finished the Flat Snark battle, and unfortunately I had another recording shenanigan. I recorded about an hour of Witch on the Holy Night for about an episode's worth, only to realize that my microphone's noise gate settings were too low, and every other word that I spoke sounded like that, basically. That's how the fucking audio came out on that recording, and yeah. So unfortunately about an hour of progress is lost. Thankfully it's not the craziest content in the game. Basically what happened is we woke up, Alice was there, she had a knife, she wanted to kill us. Alice and Shizuki aren't doing, they don't have a good relationship. They struggling. And then Aoko comes in and is like, yo, we got some rules for you, fool. You're under house arrest. You can't leave. You can't do shit without our jurisdiction. And Shizuki's like, bruh, this is lame. What did I even do? And then they're just like, yeah, well, you're kind of just tough it out, buddy. And then for some reason, Alice stuffed Shizuki inside of a magic lamp crystal thing. And that's basically what happened. It was good character moments to see, but it really wasn't much in terms of plot development. So hopefully it's all good. You feel me? Let's just continue. It's enough of a preamble.
文明社会の法律と一緒よ。犯罪、不道徳を罰するのは人間的であろうとする意識の高さと、それとは全く別の全体の仕組みを守るための構造的な結論でしょ。
Oh, the other text isn't. Oh man, I don't even know what we're talking about.
文明社会の法律と一緒よ。
I have to watch like the end of that recording, I guess.
犯罪が罰せられるのは野放しにしたらせっかく築いた社会がうまく機能しなくなるから。で、私たちにとって犯罪に当たるのは神秘の一般化、低俗化であって、不道徳とか殺人とかはまあそれぞれの良心次第ってことで、基本的に罪にもならない。
Okay, so something that this game has been teaching me that I've been appreciating a lot more is about mages, mage society, and about magic and stuff like that. It really reinforces my growing fondness for Rin over the years of how she actually, yeah, she had some problems. The way she treated Sakura wasn't really particularly good, but as a mage, it's clear to see that she was a pretty poor mage if she in the sense of like adhering to every principle that a mage should be, and I really enjoy that about Tosaka's character. It's really solid. Really going to show that Tosaka actually was way better of a person than she could have been had she not grown up the way she did, and just, I mean, a lot of that is her own free will, because I mean her childhood didn't actually really leave her room for being like the sweetest, most gentlest human being on the planet. It's also interesting that like one of the biggest taboos of magecraft is just the knowledge of it. But I mean, it makes sense. I mean, that kind of stuff has to be hidden away.
そんなろくでもない連中にルールを敷いたのが魔術協会っていう集まり、組合みたいなものよ。
I see. We actually get to learn more about the Mages Association too, which I do appreciate. It's awesome.
魔術を普及の神秘とせよというのは、魔術を魔術として永続させるために敷いたルールに過ぎないわ。けど、その原則は絶対でさ、これを破った者は魔術世界にはいられなくなる。いえ、実際問題として生きていくのが困難になる。私たちは私たちの、まあ、魔術師としての命、そういうのを守るために目撃者であるあんたを消さなくちゃいけなかった。
Yeah, it's giving more perspective on like the choices, why they make the choices that they do.
そこ、同情とかしなくていいから。私たちの事情を知ったぐらいで、遊園地のことを帳消しにしないでよ。
Nah, dude, Shizuki's got the best puppy dog eyes. Like, that's that ain't your son, that's your good boy.
私たちは私たちの判断で、あんたを殺そうとしたんだから。恨むなら、きちんと私を恨んでちょうだい。ま、それはともかく。
I don't think Shizuki's the kind of dude to blame you, though.
過去、魔術師は職業として成り立ったぐらい、社会に認知されていたけど、その魔術自体は 墓まで持っていく秘密だった。それがどう歪んだかは知らないけど、現代ではその職業すら秘密にしなくてはなら
Yeah,
な
so
くなった。
the secrecy only like increased more so as the years went
そこま
by.
でしないと、遠い未来、魔術すら消費するだけのものに解体されると、教会は恐れたのよ。自然界の仕組みも、かつて天上の領域だった宇宙の運営すら、私たちは人知で解き明かせるほどになった。人の手に余るもの。神秘という未知の領域にとって、魔術が最後の砦になると、教会の設立者は信じたのかもしれない。それとも、魔術なんてもう意味がないって達観したのかもね。そんなわけで、魔術師はその正体を隠して、
There's that
各
blue
々の
bird.
秘技を伝えていった。他人に教えるわけにはいかないから、必然的にその伝承者は子孫になる。
I mean, naturally. Habata itara.
私もアリス
So, I don't
も
remember the lyrics.
そうやって何代か続いた連中の末なのよ。
Yeah.
さっき言った魔術協会っていうのは、そんな細々と続いてる連中を束ねる一大組織。魔術師にとって司法の神ってところかしらね。
I mean, Tosaka went to the Mage Association in London, I believe, but I remember the Mage Association mostly from Zero, where they actually showed a lot about them.
教会もいろんな派閥に分かれるんだけど、大抵の魔術師は
There you go.
ロンドン
There
の
it
魔
is.
術協会に属している。汝隠匿すべしっていうのも、教会の三大原則の一つよ。魔術師が一般人に秘密を漏らすと、教会から罰が下される仕組みになっている。
There are mage hunters. They even have like, if you remember in Zero, they wiped out the entire island that Kiritsugu was on just to keep the leak of Magecraft being leaked because someone had made a proto zombie or whatever it was. It's been a minute.
そんな罰なんかなくても、自分と血族が伝えた魔術のために、目撃者は消さないといけないんだけど。
And that was the end of the first part of the lecture. Aoko paused for a moment. Soujyuro was doing his best to process the information.
次行くけど、いい？
いいけど、その前に確認したい。魔術師が正体を隠すのは自分のためじゃなく魔術のためだったけど、最近では自分の正体を隠すことの方が重要になっている。
It's a pretty apt summary there, Soujyuro.
そして、その決まりを破ると、教会というところからお咎めが来る。つまり、青崎たちもその教会に入っているのか？
いいえ、私たちはフリーよ。一応教会とつながりはあるけどね。単純に、教会は最大勢力ってだけ。連中は頼まれもしないのに、魔術世界全体の秩序を守ってるの。だから私たちが何であれ、彼らとの関わりがないにしても、魔術師としての決まりを破ったら罰しに来るわ。
わかった。大体飲み込めた。
よしよし。そうやって自分に必要な部分だけ手に入れなさい。じゃ、次は魔術について。と言っても、私自身語れるほど学んでいないんだけどね。
Alice would be the better speaker here.
ごめん、こっちの話だから忘れて。さっきも言ったけど、現代において、魔術は無意味なものになりつつある。ライターのない大昔なら、火を起こせれば、それは魔術として成り立つわ。けど今は、何かと便利でしょ？あなたならよくわかると思うけど。
Dude, that is so cool to think about, actually. Just like with technology, the evolution of magic goes to show just how mundane magic that was considered literal mystic levels wizardry is considered like just like, oh, cool, you can shoot fire out of your finger. All right, you want to actually impress me this time? I feel like a lot of this game will make Heavens feel a bit more digestible in the terms of the mystic side of it, and you know, the third magic and all that stuff. Soujyuro nodded with a glum look on his face. He had been made painfully aware of such conveniences. Difficult tasks that would occupy an entire day of work in the mountains could be performed easily here. For him, having been brought up in the mountains without electricity or running water, city life was by definition magic. Such a good dynamic! Oh! Aussie does such a good job with these dynamics. I only wished it would not be such backbreaking work to adapt to said conveniences.
でも道具を使わずに火を起こせるのは神様の仕事だと思うけど。
そのために積み重ねた手間は火炎放射器を手に入れるより面倒だとしても。
Soujyuro wasn't sure how to answer Aoko, neither am I, to be frank. It would have been easy for him to ask Aoko how much accumulated effort she thought it had taken humans to imitate those gods, but he knew it would come across as an insult. Exactly, that's why I would not have asked that.
さっきのを見る限り、魔術ってのは何でもできると思ったけど、それは誤解なのか。
He glanced at the glass bottle on the table. Mentally, he sighed in relief. He still had not come to terms with the fact that he had been trapped inside that tiny thing. However...
あら、それこそ誤解よ。万能じゃなければ、誰が魔術なんて学ぶと思ってるの？
Because you could still do some pretty cool stuff. Aoko puffed at her chest as she chided him. I mean, that's obviously a mage's pride speaking there.
手間暇かかるけど、魔術にできないことはないわ。中には、できていないけどできているように見せる、みたいな、何らかのイカサマはあるけどね。この世界に生まれた以上、その許容範囲でできないことなんてないの。そこで魔法が出てくるんだけど、それはまた改めて。
Right. Wasn't Heaven's Feel like a true, an example of true magic? I know it was the third magic, or was it the third true magic? Oh man, we're getting into some cool shit.
私が言いたかったのは、魔術は奇跡を起こしているのではなくて、その過程が奇跡だってこと。
Yeah, so you could argue that true magic is miracles, in that sense of what Ilya managed to accomplish.
結果が奇跡になるのは魔法の方なの。
Yeah, that's not exactly easy to accomplish considering we only witnessed one example of true magic in the entirety of Stay Night. And that was the culmination of a lot.
偉大な魔術師っていうのは、個人の魔術だけで旅客機飛ばしたりする人のこと。対して偉大な魔法使いっていうのは、今不可能なことを可能にする人のことよ。そういった意味じゃ、私たちは最後の魔法使いになるかもしれないけどね。
Okay, so the magicians are those trying to actually achieve true magic?
脱線してるわよ、青子。
She's like, this. Don't get excited. Stop! Alice had been quietly listening until she muttered a rebuke, as if Aoko had crossed a line. I guess the idea of them being the true last magician struck a chord with her. I'm guessing she has a lot of baggage when it comes to her family.
そこまで教える必要はないでしょう。
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. She overstepped her boundaries there.
雫君に教えるべきことは、私たちと暮らす上で危険になることだけじゃなかった。悪かったわ。ちょい口滑らせた。ともかく、魔術師っていうのは、暇さえあれば魔術の実験をしてる連中で、自分の家系が伝えてきた秘技を守るためなら、鬼でも悪魔にでもなる。必然、そのアジト。工房って言うんだけど、工房も魔術的な機構が積み重なって、要塞みたいになっちゃうのよ。
I love that portrait of Aoko.
秘技を守るために、入ってきた相手を問答無用で叩きのめす仕掛けとか。この洋館も、そういった工房と同じなの。不用心に歩き回って、さっきみたいなことになったら、私でも助けてあげられないから、暗闇には気をつけなさい。気がついたら鏡の中にいるとか本気であるから。
It'll become the Matrix, dude! Soujyuro also hoped they would provide him with a general idea of what to watch out for, but he passed knowing that he was unlikely to get a straight answer.
枝葉から入っちゃったけど、要は私たちのプライベートに関わるなってこと。いくら最後には記憶を消すって言っても、それを見られた段階で消すしかないものもあるから。
なるほど。この中にもルールがあることはよくわかった。他に注意すべきことは。
His eyes wandered as he trailed off mid-sentence, pondering. He understood that the mansion was more dangerous than outside, and that Magecraft needed to stay secret. But the explanations seem to contradict his current problem. Yeah, exactly. For starters, how had he managed to witness something that they took such pains to keep hidden?
すまない。話の腰を折るんだけど、魔術師は教会という組織で結ばれてるんだろ？なら、どうして青崎はあんな人形に襲われたんだ？あれの持ち主が魔術師なら、君たちは味方同士で争っていることになる。何か説明が不足していないか？
それは最後にしようと思ってたのよ。普通はここまでの話だけで眉唾者っていうか笑い飛ばすっていうか、いくら経験済みだからって魔術なんてもんをあっさり受け入れるなんてできないっていうか。
For a traditional person, I suppose. But Shizuki's built different. Aoko scratched her head as though troubled by how Soujyuro could take every word at face value. Across from her, Alice's face betrayed no expression, but she shared the same opinion.
ん？おかしいのか？
おかしいわよ。そもそもあんたは第一ステップから変だった。
Yeah.
普通は驚いたり怖がったり無視したりするものなのに、どうして魔法使いだなんて言った私を信じたの？
I didn't even know gas stoves existed 2 months ago, dude. You expect me not to believe what I'm seeing with my own eyes? In retrospect, this question should have been posed at the House of Mirrors. Back then, though Soujyuro was surprised by seeing the phenomenon of magecraft for the first time, he showed no surprise or discomfort toward Aoko, the mage wielding it. Feeling the probing stares of the two mages, made Soujyuro feel uneasy. From where he was standing, their suspicion was suspicious in and of itself.
なんでも何もない。青崎、山ではね、あるものはあるのが当たり前なんだよ。
Yep.
理由をつけられるだけの知識がなかったからにしても、実際に見たものを信じないなんてことはないんだ。それに君も言ったろ。あなたにとっては魔法もライターも同じものなんだろうって。
Though they weren't really the same to many more, he added quietly before shutting up. What he said about those innocent days in the mountains had come from the heart, and the words resonated with not only Aoko Aozaki, but also Alice Gonji. It was something everyone should have. Principles to stand by. Indeed, to this boy, those words were an unshakable truth.
あるものはあるか。
She was impressed, if only slightly. If this boy, no matter how much of an outlier he was, could accept the things around him, he would be able to get through this just fine.
そうね。Soujyuroはそうなのね。
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I did a good job!
簡単に信じてもらえることが信じられない。なんて、私たちの方がどうかしてたわ。
Much like when Aoko met Soujyuro for the first time. In that classroom on his first day, Soujyuro took everything that was happening in his stride. Memory brought a bitter smile to Aoko's face. Alright. I really enjoyed that scene. That was really sweet.
じゃ、気を取り直してっと。Soujyuroの疑問だけどね。魔術師もいろいろあって、教会に属していない連中もいるの。こういった連中は教会の目を盗んでやりたい放題で、利益目的で他の魔術師に喧嘩を売ってくる。そんな連中にとって、私たちは都合のいい格好のカモなのよ。私たちは教会と協定関係にあるだけで、門下ってわけじゃないから。私たちが殺されたところで、教会は助けてくれないしね。
でも、魔術師が魔術を使うのは禁じてるんだろ？
それが公にならないのなら、教会は目をつむるわ。
Yeah, I guess so.
むしろ、バレなければ魔術師同士の争いを奨励してるぐらいよ。技術も使わないと錆びるってね。
It's like, yeah, kill each other. It'll be for your benefit.
ま、私たちが襲われてるのはそれとは別の話で。
土地ってこの家？
まさか。この三崎市一帯の管理地の権利を持ってるのよ。 私とアリスは。
What? Okay, now I am bamboozled.
管理地ってつまり土地の利権？
Yeah, okay. Dazzled, Soujyuro looked away. He was sure he could see a halo of light around Aoko. They just became gods to him. He'd only been renting an apartment for 2 weeks, but he was already aware of how magnificent the prospect of owning land in the city might be.
おお、
The word Soujyuro was trying to articulate was rich. He shook all over with an emotion he did not fully grasp.
悪いけどそういうんじゃないから。私たちで土地って言ったら魔術師としての霊地の所有権、
Okay.
支配権のことを言うの。
This is our playground, essentially.
うちはマイナーだけど古くからこの辺りに根を下ろしてた魔術師で、三崎町もうちの管理下ってわけ。管理地っていうのはね、霊的な力が歪んで集まりやすい土地のこと。そういう土地は昔から貴重で、魔術の実践、成功への絶対条件は優れた霊地、堅固な工房、多くの弟子たちってね。魔術師たちにとって土地付き館付きの住み家を持つのは一つの野望なんだから。
Soujyuro let her continue while wondering exactly who these two girls were to have achieved both ambitions already.
でもその管理地は大部分が教会に仕切られてて、もう余っている土地はないの。
Wow, the association really just said, our land.
はぐれ魔術師や土地のない魔術師は教会に毎月寄付金を納めて土地を借りるしかない。ま、手よく教会のお偉いさんたちに尽くす働き蜂ってところね。でもここの土地は何百年も前から青崎のものだから、教会とは関係がないの。
Be some shit if it was someone from the organization, the association actually, that just wants to get rid of them so that they could take this land.
ここまで言えばわかるでしょ。そういったフリーの連中からすれば、私たちの管理地はこの上ないごちそうなんだって。
But I mean, why would the association care if they own so much land? So I guess that would be kind of like redundant. Soujyuro nodded to himself, unsure whether to call the conversation mundane or outright disturbing.
よくわかった。青崎たちは土地の奪い合いをしているんだな。
そういうこと。ただ三崎の管理地はマイナーのさらにマイナーだから、やってくる挑戦者も三流ばっかりよ。
Yeah, it is a minor area of land in the grand scheme of things. So they've all been bad, but this is like the first time it was like, whoa!
今回の敵だってどっかの三流魔術師が
あ
ここなら
okay.
楽に奪えると思ってやってきたんだろうし。
管理地の話はそれで十分よ、青子。しずきくんも他に魔術師がいると分かってくれたようだし、危険があるとすれば私たちの戦いに彼が巻き込まれる可能性だ。
Foreshadowing is a literary device.
それは大丈夫でしょ。だってこいつ魔力のかけらもないじゃない。魔力感知には引っかからないし、番犬以下の人間は戦力って言わ
You
ないか
take
ら
that back,
狙われることも
bro.
ないだろうし。
Soujyuro has more tactical value than you know.
私たちはただ忘却のルーンを見つけるまでこいつを逃がさなければいいだけでしょ。
Alice silently stared her partner down. Their ideas of involving Soujyuro differed greatly in both gravity and risk. Aoko's lack of experience had led her to believe that Soujyuro would not get directly involved in any fighting. It was an honest and rational thought. Okay, but Alice is more experienced and knows that these things don't always go as smoothly. Aoko despised wasted action, so it was natural for her to expect the same frugality from her enemies. However, there were those in this world who could not tell right from wrong until it was too late. That's foreshadowing is a
先
literary
のこと
device.
は誰にも分からないから、その時になって後悔がなければいいけ
Who
ど。
said that? With a gloomy sigh, Alice came to her feet.
ちょっと何のために長話したと思ってるのよ。一番重要なあんたの意見聞いてないんですけど。
あなたがあなたの方針を守るというのなら、私も好きにするだけよ。
Alice glided soundlessly to the door. As the girl in black opened it, she paused, barely lit by the dim corridor. Then, without warning, oh, the thing shattered. To the rhythm of her footsteps, the small glass bottle floated into the air and shattered without mercy. Jeez.
あの時こうしておけばよかった。
Wow. So it's a good... Alice still has full intentions of killing us, dude. Man, if it weren't for Aoko helping us get out of there, she would have just smashed it and we'd be like an ant. Her sharp tone made Sojuro's face go pale. Alice's voice was so quiet it was hard to tell if she was being serious or mocking him.
私も言い忘れていたけど、
She icily eyed them before turning away. And in a voice even colder than her gaze, stated,
まだ認めていないから。
Of course not. Bro, she angry. Goddamn, get her a Snickers bar. Her frigid departure seemed to forebode the many difficulties that lay ahead.
たく、往生際が悪い。
Aoko leaned back on the sofa while hurling abusive epithets? I don't think I've ever heard that word before. Her face looked even more irritated than usual.
見逃すのとここに住まわせるのは別問題よって。じゃあそれ以外にどんな方法があるってのよ。
Yeah, killing him, obviously.
譲る気もなさそうだし。この分じゃ実力行使に出るかもね、あの子。
Soujyuro threw a wary glance at Aoko while she grumbled. He wondered what Alice's show of defiance meant, shattering the glass bottle like she did.
宗十郎には記憶をなくしてもらうってことで話はつけたけど、心の底から納得してないってことでしょ。アリスにしちゃ珍しく他人を意識してたけど、やっぱりここに住まわせるとなると難しいみたい。
Yeah, it really does seem that way.
寝てる分には良かったけど、起きてるあんたを見たらこう、えも言わぬ刺激心を刺激されたとかさ。気をつけてね、宗十郎。
Yeah.
あの子、あんたを殺しに来るかもしれないから。
She says casually. If anything, Aoko's warning was an indication that persuading Alice had to hit a dead end.
なんか状況はあの夜からあまり変わってない
No,
ようだ
not
ね
really.
青崎。
She shot him an unconcerned look in reply. Whatever.
そうじゃないぞ。青崎の次はあの子がやる気満々じゃないか。さっきみたいな目にあったら逃げることもできない。こういうの生殺しって言うんじゃないか。
そうならないように努力するのね。ま、アリスの理由は遊園地の時ほど切迫したものじゃないから、そのうち諦めてくれるとは思うんだけど。
青崎の時とは違うアリスの理由？
ええ。遊園地の時は秘密厳守のためだったけど、それは一応解決してる。あんたが底抜けに律儀なやつだってのはアリスだってもう分かってるし、なんで秘密厳守云々であそこまで反対する理由はないの。あの子は単にね、ここに住んでほしくないだけなのよ。
That is unfair.
それだけで、アリスはあんたを殺したがってる。
She said so matter-of-factly, her eyes cold and serious. Soujyuro had hoped for a trace of deceit or exaggeration, but alas.
確かにあの子はそんな素振りだったけど変だね。それならもっと他の手段を取ればいいのに。
Perhaps feeling guilty about putting Alice out, Soujyuro looked uncharacteristically concerned. Aoko immediately knew what his words really meant.
例えば、記憶を消す魔術が見つかるまで、さっきの小瓶の中に閉じ込めておくとか？
The apathy in her voice until now was gone. Soujyuro answered with a simple nod. In truth, it was undoubtedly the easiest solution for all parties concerned. However,
宗十郎、私、約束は破らないの。
she hated taking the easy way out, and that quiet fury was clear in her soft words. As for where that fury was directed, Soujyuro was acutely aware. The pain in his chest made him regret making her say those words. Oh.
すまない。考えが足りなかった。
His sudden apology caused her usual sullen expression to return. Aoko had not appreciated how angry she was, let alone the reason for it. To her, his apology had come out of nowhere.
あんたってほんとわかんないわね。なんでそこで謝るのよ。
She stared at Soujyuro, unblinking.
あれそうだな。自分でもよくわからない。
Been there before, brother.
そういう気分になったからだろ。
Even in saying he was not sure, Soujyuro had answered honestly. Aoko was at a loss for words.
ただ、青崎の言いたいことは分かった。約束を守るっていうことは、結果じゃなく、家庭を守るってことなんだな。
He shot her a brazenly honest smile. That smiling face, filled with blissful ignorance, almost made her smile back instinctively.
当たり前じゃない。オチだけ合ってればいいなんて恥ずかしくてできないでしょ。
Aoko attempted to cover for her embarrassment with a quick retort. Though unintentional, having her true feelings exposed like that made Aoko a little uncomfortable. Finding offense in something was second nature to Aoko. Being made to feel uncomfortable was not. Though, far from being unhappy at the remark, she turned away from its speaker. To disguise her perceived shame, Aoko started up the conversation again.
あなたを見逃すって言うなら気持ちの問題じゃなくて、ちゃんと状況もそうなるようにするのは当たり前なの。宗十郎をここに住まわせることがあの約束を守ることになるんなら、
Yep.
厄介なアリスだって言い伏せるわよ。脅かすだけならまだしも、ずっと瓶付けなんてさせられるわけないでしょ。
そっか。青崎があの子を説得しない素振りなのは、
Yep.
もうできるだけの説得をした後だからなのか。
She has to come to her own decision on that regard, and I think Sojuro's gonna be the one to, like, open her up, maybe, to that idea.
それで彼女とは冷戦中なんだ。
It is.
別にあんたのためじゃないわ。私は私のために約束を守ってるだけだし。お察しの通り、私のやるべきことはもう終わってるし、あとはそっちが努力する番だから勝手にすれば。
Huh? He replied, tilting his head.
あのね、いい？同居案を何とか認めさせることができるのは私だけだから、2日間ぶっ通しでアリスを言い伏せもした。けどそれ以上は無理。私、ここから先はノータッチだから。しばらくはアリスから守ってあげるけど、その間にあの子にあんたを認めさせることは、あんたにしかできないんだからね。
なんと。
Sojuro did not expect that at all. Alice Koonshi, the girl in black who kept everyone at arm's length. If Aoko was a modern-day mage in hiding, then Alice was a bona fide witch from the Middle Ages. Yeah, she's the witch on the Holy Night.
青崎、君、自分がどれだけ難しいことを言ってるか分かってるか？
そうね。私もこの件に関してだけは同情するわ。
Aoko stood up from the sofa. This is the end of the discussion, at least for now.
私たちがどんな人間かはおおよそ分かったでしょ。魔術に関してはこれ以上立ち入らない方があんたのためだから、説明はここまでね。で、肝心の今後の方針だけど、3ヶ月間ここで暮らす。当初の目標というより最初の試練は、なんとかアリスに同居人として認めてもらうこと。
試練って言った。今そういう類のことを言った。
ごまかしてもいいことないでしょ、この手のことは。
I'm getting kind of nervous about, like, the amnesia thing. If, like, that's how the game's gonna end. Like, in a tragic way, they will get rid of, Shizuki's memories, and that, like, these past 3 months, the memories might even erase, like, all of the memories of Aoko and Alice and everyone. I feel like they could, like, do a really tragic end in that way.
うまくいかなきゃ粉々なわけだし。
With her cold-blooded remark, Aoko started walking toward the door.
あ、そうそう。宗十郎の部屋だけど、3階に用意しといたから。2階のホールの裏側に階段があるから使って。ここは寮ってわけでもないし、 時間は自由に使いなさい。ただし西館にだけは入らないようにね。東館は私が借りてるから比較的安全だけど、それでも歩き回らない方が無難だわ。
Okay, makes sense.
基本安全なのはあんたの部屋とここだけよ。
中の説明ってまさかそれだけ？
Yeah, that's it. Good luck.
青崎はいろいろおかしい。魔術なんかよりもっと大事な説明があると思う。
He desperately called out to her as she began to leave the drawing room. Aoko could not help but pity Soujyuro.
せめてほら、案内とか。
面倒なんでパス。おのぼりさんを案内するなんて2回もやれば十分。
Damn, she's like, nah, I don't really feel like it.
起きたばっかりだし、とりあえず今日は部屋で休んだら。朝になったら学校まで案内してあげるから。もっとも私もそう暇じゃなし。そばについてあげられるのは期末試験が終わるまでってことで。
Man, this image of her is basically the I don't fucking care about you or your feelings. Just like
1週間以内にアリスと仲良くなるなり弱みを握るなりしないと、まああれよね。
Okay. Okay. With barely a wave of goodbye, the student council tyrant walked out. He unconsciously clenched the hand he had raised. Left all alone, he was at a complete loss. Then, as if to encourage him, "Hey, bluebird!" Chirp, chirp, chirp. The sound of lightly fluttering wings, a blue robin appeared out of nowhere. The tiny chubby bird innocently looked Soujyuro up and down. The blue robin, a bird said to bring happiness according to folklore, flapped its little wings as if to cheer him on. Oh! Oh! Then with a flutter, it mercilessly flicked off the lights. How do I get back to my room? Leaving Soujyuro alone in the drawing room, Aoko returned to her bedroom. She closed the door to her room, and as soon as she sat on her bed, she was overcome by an unexpected wave of exhaustion. Soujyuro had no way of knowing, but she had been preparing for war. In the event that Alice impulsively pulled out a ploy, Aoko had to be ready to react to it in an instant. She sighed heavily, but not from the fatigue she felt at fighting with
ちょっ
Alice.
と突っぱねすぎたか。
Oh, wow. She frowned a dejected frown. What weighed on Aoko's mind was not Alice.
でも甘くするのはあいつのためにならないし、基本おとなしくしてもらった方がいいわけだし。
It'd be trouble if he wandered around like he owned the place after all. Safest thing for him would be if he holed up in his room, too scared out of his wits to leave it.
青崎は味方だなんて勘違いされても困るしね。アリス同様、人でなし扱いされた方が楽だわ。
Damn! Ow! Ow! She nodded to herself, agreeing with her take on the situation. For the most part, it was a sound plan. If there were a problem, it would be this.
すまない青崎。一つ聞きたいことがあるんだが。
He just comes into her room like, excuse me. Where's the fridge? Hi, hungry. Anyway, look at this room, though. I didn't realize Aoko was, obsessed with music. Not 10 minutes have passed since leaving him in the drawing room. Oh my god, this is big comedy. Soujyuro had to shirk off, but she had set and visited her room so fast, it was like he had no sense of danger at all.
実は外に出たいんだ。
Of course, he would ask to leave the house. Aoko lacked the energy for a sarcastic barb.
洋館の中は歩き回らないし、用を済ませたらきちんと戻ってくる。ただ、門限とかあったら聞いておこうと思って。
でもアルバイトには行くのよね。
I think so. How did you know? Soujyuro exclaimed in surprise, when it was Aoko who desired to display her shock at him.
まあいいわ。基本午後10時まで。その時間には必ず屋敷にいること。その後は夜勤に出かけるなり、庭でバーベキューするなり、何でも好きにしていい。それと玄関に鍵はかかってないから。
気のせいじゃなければだけど、青崎、すごく怒ってないか？
Isn't she always?
あんた相手に気を使った自分に呆れ果ててるだけよ。外に出るのはいいけど、その前にこの錠剤飲んで。
What? Excuse me? It's Adderall. Soujyuro took the purple pill from her outstretched hand and dubiously put it in his... He just does it? Okay! He told himself that it must have been some kind of medicine.
それじゃあ行ってくる。いろいろありがとう。
Bro, could have been poison, man!
あっそ。今度は窓から出ていかないでよね。
Soujyuro laughed himself all the way to the foyer, unsure of what exactly he had found funny. Aoko watched him go, both indifferent and amazed all at once.
ま、予定が半日早まっただけか。あの薬を飲ませるの、明日の朝にしてあげようと思う。
What does it do? What does the pill do? It's for the M-Preg fanfic with Tobimaru. She huffed, ruffling her hair in exasperation and returning to her room. Discerning what made Soujyuro tick was a waste of brain matter. In all likeliness, he was more concerned about missing 2 days of work than his own well-being after being bedridden for 2 days. He's such a good guy. He's such a good man, bruh. The day's work behind him, Soujyuro returned to the mansion.
よし。どこを探しても、2階のホールから上がれる階段はここだけだ。
It was just before midnight. The scene that awaited him beyond the rickety staircase.
ほ
Not much surprised Soujyuro, or rather, being surprised had become normal to him. This scene, however, was enough to leave him speechless. The room allotted to Soujyuro, no matter how he looked at it, no matter how he ran it through his mind, was without a shadow of a doubt an attic. Oh, it's cold, man! I'm shivering my balls off in here! This treatment stirred a tinge of anxiety in him, just as he was about to flop onto the taut sheets of his bed, wondering if he could make this work despite his share of other problems. He noticed an awkward courtesy, so meager as to be useless.
寒かったら重ねて使うこと。これはサービスとする。
Aw, she does care. It's a blanket, I'm guessing? The message in the memo pointed to the meticulous personality of the author. The bed had been perfectly prepared, carefully setting aside the blanket that had been painstakingly placed on the edge of the bed for him in case he needed it. He looked up at the sky. Though faint, stars twinkled through the skylight. For a mountain boy, that meager light was more than enough for him. The stark contrast of the drawing room had caught him off guard, but now that he had collected himself, it was not so bad. This room fit his personality. Even if he still was not used to the building, he felt more at ease here than he did in any building in the city. Perhaps because it was built on a hill surrounded by woods. The atmosphere here was a little closer to the mountains where he used to live.
あ、でも、家の中に霧が出るのはどうなんだろう。
Fog? Interesting. On the way to his room, Soujyuro had encountered what looked like fog in the foyer on the second floor. It's sleep gas. Hey yo, what the fuck? That's thick. The misty fog drifted into a portion of the corridor, reminding him of a swarm of mosquitoes. As he stared at it, he swore he could make out a strange landscape. As he moved closer to get a better look, oh, the bird again. Again, out of nowhere, here inside the mansion, a little blue bird darted purposefully in front of him.
鳥
The bird caught his attention, stopping him in his tracks. When he looked to check on the fog again, the strange scene had disappeared.
この家隙間でもあるのかな明日青崎に聞いてみるか
He muttered to himself as he sat on the bed. Meager as it was, the starlight peeping in through the skylight claimed him.
これなら
Exhaling slowly, he lay down. For the time being, he had the essentials needed to live, and his bed was many times softer than it appeared. Thinking his worries seemed smaller than they were, he quickly drifted off to sleep. That was the story of from when he opened his eyes to when he fell asleep. Just like that, the short night following the long night was over. For one thing was true. Soujyuro was an optimist to a fault, but it wasn't the end of the world. Now, let us rewind 5 hours prior to this glutton for punishment going to bed. Okay, we get to see him at work, I guess? Okay. It was 7 o'clock in the evening, just after the unproductive discussion between the two mages and the boy had ended. Leaving her roommate and the intruder in the drawing room, the girl walked alone through the foyer. From there, she headed to the west wing. These were Alice Koenji's personal chambers, in which even her roommate, Aoko Aozaki, seldom dared to step foot. The foyer was illuminated only by pale moonlight. Hard footsteps echoed through the dreary, moonlit lobby. In such mansions in Japan, there was no custom for removing shoes at the door. Hence, Alice crossed the foyer in her boots. She only removed them when she relaxed in her bedroom. Suddenly, she remembered something from her childhood. She used to enjoy the feeling of the cold, hardwood floor on her bare feet and would walk around the foyer on particularly sunny days. After her father affectionately scolded her for it, she never did it again.
そうだったわね。青子は結局守らなかった。
She let out a quiet sigh. Alice's new roommate, whom she took on after coming to Japan, would not comply with her instructions.
落ち着かないものはしょうがない。
Aoko would say, changing into her slippers. Aoko, I love that. That is... Oh man, that is some stank eye right there. Aoko might have found it natural to do so given that she lived in a typical Japanese house through middle school. But every time Alice heard her foot flopping through the foyer, she wanted to cancel their cohabitation. By now, Alice was not particularly bothered by it anymore. Human adaptability was remarkable at times, and ungracious at others. The emotional attachments of the past had proved far too brittle under the weight of reality. A little blue bird was perched on the banister. Its tiny chirping made Alice stop and look its way.
今夜は放っておくわ。今は青子の問題よ。
Okay. I'm guessing that's why the bird didn't really do anything. The lack of feeling in her voice made the bird tilt its head as it sang. Tweet, tweet, tweet. It trilled, as though questioning its master's uncharacteristic leniency.
約束は約束よ。今夜ぐらいは多めに見ないと。青子と彼はそれだけの活躍をしたのだし。
Well, it's much appreciated. She said to the bird, her voice betraying her discontent. If you win, I'll let you go. She would keep that promise in spite of the unquenchable desire to fight that burned in her chest.
でも、その後の処遇は別の話。条件付きのゲームに勝ったぐらいで、いつまでも得意げでいられるのは心外だわ。
Perhaps it was perfectionism born of fastidiousness, but despite her prim demeanor, Alice Koenji was a sore loser. Just like Aoko mentioned, did not matter to her whose magecraft was superior. Losing the game had proven hard to move on from. The little bird fluttered its wings in agreement. Drinking in Alice's contempt, it was itching to dive bomb the invader. Wow. Okay, I'm surprised the bird didn't really... It seemed to, like, encourage us earlier. Looked like a soldier saluting a superior officer as it preened itself. The bluebird turned to face its master. Tweet, 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 tweet. Its lighthearted tweeting seemed to display a desire to deal with Soujyuro first thing in the morning.
そうね。理由さえできたのなら、瓶なり本なりに入ってもらいましょう。
The sadism. Except her words lacked any bite. On the face of it, they were the chilling kind one might come to expect from a witch's lips, but then again, so tame as to remind you of a certain robin's flapping.
しばらくの話よ。けど、それも一時だけ。私の我慢も長くは続かないし、だいたい、青子も人にかまけていられる立場じゃないわ。
And that time came, expelling him would be simple. Alice was well aware her roommate was a pragmatist with no vision. The situation she created would not allow her to wait around. She could only afford to protect that boy for 3 or 4 days at most. Good grief. Beyond that, Alice sensed Aoko would crack and say something like, "You take care of this, Alice."
それまで待つか。あるいは、私の我慢が効かなくなるか。どちらにしても、結果は変わらないわ。
Alice Kuonji would suffer no more irritations, and protecting a witness, let alone allowing them to live in her mansion, was an indignity. There was the fog. Alice looked up, fascinated by the dense fog that had crawled into the foyer. Above the fireplace was a single mirror. Roughly 3 feet in diameter, it decorated the wall where one might find a painting. Its surface was faintly clouded and vaguely reflected the foyer's appearance.
スナークをなくした影響でしょうね。
Oh. Okay.
鏡の機能、しばらくは制御できないみたい。
Can't use the mirror? The little bird joyfully chirped at its master's mumbling. The bird attempted to imply that there was no need for her to lift a finger, not if the nuisance would fall into the mirror of his own accord. So, like, that's an actual thing that they set up with the mirror earlier? That's like the trap awaiting him? Or perhaps, had the little bird had not sang, Alice would have come to the same conclusion. For some reason, she recalled an earlier conversation.
これでも一番無難だと思う。
In response to her question, the boy inside the bottle shrugged his shoulders and answered. From his perspective, the city and the mansion were no different. It seemed that having just moved from the countryside, everything was something he had never seen before.
自慢できることじゃないが、まだ書き物さえ満足にできないし、都会のルールは複雑すぎて、何が正しいのかさえ区別がつかない。
More than embarrassment, his voice was full of resentment. He was angry about something, though Alice could not tell what. But
だから、どこにいても危ないことに変わ
I
りはない
guess
ん
you
だ。
could say that, yeah.
極端な話、道を歩くだけでも、人と話すだけでも不安になる。
Wow.
俺は、どこでだろうとうまくやっていける保証はないんだよ。
He sure does hide it well if he really is just a walking ball of
け
anxiety.
ど、ここにはそんな奴に気を使ってくれる人がいる。気遣ってくれる理由は物騒なものっぽいけど、
Jesus.
それは本当に贅沢なことだと思うんだ。
Okay. Her eyes welled up ever so slightly. Oh, does she relate to that? Oh, wow. Yeah, so I'm guessing this is alluding to the fact that Alice as a person has not been shown much care or concern for. She seemed to have liked her dad. I mean, the way that it was phrased earlier was that her father, like, scolded her in a gentle way, which wouldn't be indicative of a bad father. So I'm definitely interested in what kind of backstory she has. Those soft words were something she could not brush off, because they made sense to her. Given that everything in the city was a danger to him, nothing had changed after coming to the mansion, so everything is a danger to her as well. They can kind of relate in that way. Interesting how they're actually connected more so than you think. In reality, he had no reason to fear this place in particular. If anything was different from the outside, it would be that someone here was his ally. With that view, he had been entirely sincere. His explanation hadn't contained any flattery towards Alice Koenji, more pandering to Aoko Aozaki. He was simply speaking from the heart. I like it here.
今鏡に迷い込まれるのは迷惑ね。
Wow, so just him being himself, his earnest, sincere self, is gonna save him the trouble of the mirror?
鏡の機能は侵入者の探索に専念させたいし、彼が迷い込みそうになったら止めてあげて。
Wow, that's huge. Okay, so we don't have to deal with the mirror. Fuck yeah. The bird shook its feathers at her strange instruction. Alice looked away from the mirror and continued her walk. The bird chirped in
あな
protest.
たの仕事よロビン。それぐらいの役には立って。
Leaving the bird with that icy retort, she vanished into the west wing. Well, guess you gotta do it now, buddy. All that remained was the moonlight. And the little blue bird, trembling at a perilous prospect of unprecedented change. Chapter 6. Nice to meet you. Chapter 6, all scenarios read. Okay. Are you for real? Bro, what do I, gotta say, Ryuji? For real? Okay, alright. What does the archive do? Okay, it just shows you, like, the actual chapters that we've read. I see. So chapter 6, you have Nostalgic Daydream, Before the Tryst, Alcohol Out of the Blue, Glass Bottle, Life in the Mansion, Kind of Like a Bird. Okay. Ah, yeah, Night of Witches was long. Chapter 5... I see. So these little mini chapters, and then... Okay. I like the archive section. It's really cool. Well, let's continue a little bit. Are you for real? Next episode. Once, long ago, I saw a beautiful bird fly overhead. Round and round, it circled the distant blue sky. How high it flew in this era when humans, not birds, reigned supreme. And yet, the bird was completely uninterested in humanity's endless desire for expansion, our creation of even higher homes, or the smoke bellowing from industry's chimneys. The sky extends further than the eye can see. It belongs to no one, not now, not then. The bird was a truly noble creature, flapping its wings powerfully across the wild ancient sky. Oh! Oh, what? Damn, that is so sudden. Until the sudden sound of cold iron. A wing is shot, its symmetry gone forever. Cruel and tragic, its body plummets downwards. Not knowing its fate, the bird frantically beats its wings till the very end. One moment soaring with eyes to the sky, the next crashing down to the dry, hardened earth. This was the dream I saw. What metaphor is this? No matter how much I thought about it, the details remained clouded. Does the bird represent Soujyuro? What did that bird look like, for instance? Interesting dream. I'm wondering if that bird represents Soujyuro, and if that kind of worries me, bro. Are you for real?
はい、今日の授業はここまで。
And we haven't been to school in like 20 years.
試験範囲の総まとめなんかやっちゃいましたけど、これうちのクラスだけですから、よそのクラスには内密にお願いしますね。ほら、原告の平均点ぐらいは学年一番にしておくと、皆さんも鼻が高いと思いまして。
Mr. Yamashiro chuckled as he finished. This was typical of the kind of teacher responsible for Year 2, Class C, the master at relaxing his pupils.
先生、口元に本音出てる。鼻を高くしたいのは私たちじゃないですよね。
Why can't it be both, bro?
鼻っていうかメンツですよね。先生、里中先生に嫌味言われてばっかりだし。
Oh.
つうかはっきり言えばいいんすよ。お前ら頭悪すぎだって。いやまあうちのクラス見事なまでに体育会系ばっかりだけどさ。
いえいえ、テストの点数だけが学生生活ではありませんから、僕から言うべきことは何も。先生方もそこまで目くじら立ててるわけじゃないので、別にクラス全員が赤点でも僕の人生には何ら関わりはないんですけどね。しかし一方では一人厄介な御仁がおりまして、皆さんが選んだ全校生徒代表の方なんですが、これが恐ろしいのなんの。テストの点数が低いのは生徒ではなく教育する側が無能だからです。教育委員会への報告準備はいつでもできていますので、と日夜脅してくるんですよ。それでも生徒たちが治らないようなら、その時は直接私が監督しますとか、生徒としてどうなんですかね。
Same, brother. The warm atmosphere in the room suddenly fell below freezing. The students of Class C now knew who their true enemy was.
ああ、そっか。山城先生生徒会の顧問だったっけ。
さすがは応援団を立ち直らせた女傑。教師一人退職に追い込んだ
Probably.
と造作を
Wouldn't
ね。
doubt that.
やっぱりな。会長絶対年サバ読んでるって。あの迫力。同年代と思えねえ
Right,
し。
I forgot this kid's name, but he works at the part-time job with him, right?
ほら、うちの女子と比べると特にこうおっぱい的に。
Okay, I mean, an astute observation, sure, but bruh.
先生、木の実だけでも A 組に引き取ってもらえませんか。そりゃ男子はみんな猿ですけど、こいつだけレベルの違う猿ですよ、絶対。
あれでも女子 A 組だけどあんまり成績良くねえよな。中の上ぐらいじゃなかったっけ。
そうだけど別にいいんじゃない。塾も行ってないし、生徒会仕切ってたまにバイトまでしてるんだから。あれで学年トップだったら逆に気持ち悪すぎ。
だよな。周囲は副会長に任せとけばいいんだよ。
まあまあ皆さん、噂話はそのあたりで。地獄耳という言葉もありますから。じゃあそれなりに復習をよろしく。あんまり点数が悪いと冬休みそのものがなくなりますからね。あ、それとしずきくん、
What do you want?
ちょっといいですか。
What do you want? Mr. Yamashiro gathered his things and beckoned for Soujyuro to join him in the hallway. There were no other students to be seen despite it being break time between classes. Voices were audible in the distance, but the hall itself felt strangely quiet and calm. Perhaps it was due to the sense of confinement created by the lack of windows. Usually students spent their breaks either in their classrooms or on the
何で
veranda.
すか山城先生。
いえ、そう大した用事じゃないんですけどね。試験前にこんな話をするのもデリカシーがないんですが、気になったので。
You know, after
どうだろう。
playing...
学校には慣れたかな。
Since the last time I really played a lot of this game, I've played so many of the Trails games. Apologies if anybody was wanting those to be like future Let's Plays or whatever, but I'm all the way on to Cold Steel 2 now. I don't know if I trust this guy anymore. He's got glasses, and any nice guy with glasses is sus. I don't know, man. This guy's the villain of the whole game. Or something. Probably. Who knows? It was only natural. After having had to deal with such difficult personalities lately, Mr. Yamashiro's trivial questions were refreshing.
はい。学校の作りや決まりなら自分なりに分かってきました。
そっか、それはよかった。うちのクラスは口の悪い面々だけど、その分気を使わなくていいからね。
What is that reaction, bro? Sojuro's eyes shone brightly in appreciation. In Aoko's words, Mr. Yamashiro's was a brutish, forgettable, downright detestable man who did not even deserve the title of teacher. But Soujyuro found him considerate in his own way.
アルバイトもほどほどにね。試験前だって言えば、大抵のところは休ませてくれるから、あまり無理はしないように。また、試験で困ったことがあったら、周りに相談しなさい。一人で悩んでいても時間の無駄だよ。
With the wave of his hand, Mr. Yamashiro was gone. The Peter-hearted Soujyuro gave him a solemn nod as if to say he accepted the advice of his so-called forgettable teacher and went back into the classroom. And then, Carrot Top.
女のことで相談だ
It's not what you think. It's not what you think. I'm just trying to get close to this one girl that wants to kill me. He's like, wait a minute, what? Somebody wants to kill you? Soujyuro had not wasted a moment in putting Mr. Yamashiro's advice into practice.
そうらしい。難問にぶち当たっているん
It's a
だ。
big wall.
深く考えてみて気づいたんだが、どうも自分は発想が貧困らしい。
I admire Soujyuro for trying so hard. Soujyuro averted his eyes out of shame over his lack of insight.
いや、豊かだと思ってたことがびっくりなんだけど。まあいい、こっち来い。
Wow. Thanks, Carrot Top. Shocked as he was, Kinomi, that's his name. Kinomi grabbed Soujyuro by the shoulder and pulled him over to the wall. Kinomi had nearly burst out laughing when Soujyuro, with a straight face, had admitted his difficulty with girls. But he realized it was the first time Soujyuro had ever turned to him for advice. Soujyuro was always able to break down any task at his part-time jobs into bite-sized pieces, but he was clearly struggling with a different problem now. This is going to take some serious effort.
で、なんかやっちまったのかいや。
She wants to kill me.
これからやるのかもしれない。
Me and my bro right here.
木の実、例えばの話、マッドベアにハリセンボンみたいな女の子が入ってきたとする。その子は俺が嫌いで、マッドベアから出て行ってほしいようなんだけど、俺はマッドベアを辞めるわけにはいかない。
Complex situation. Soujyuro explained that he couldn't just quit his part-time job at the restaurant, he needed the money. Kinomi grunted a few times, indicating he was still following Sojuro's story.
つまりその女を追い出したいと。
逆だ。なんとか認めてもらいたい。隠していたけど、俺はその女の子が嫌いというわけじゃなくて。
Soujyuro furrowed his brow. Kinomi could not help but laugh at his friend's lack of manly resolve in his answer. Girls are the one area where Hosuke's skills and experience were triple those of Soujyuro. In the scent, it was -3 because he gets no bitches. Wait a minute, a negative times a negative is a positive. He does get bitches!
なんだよ。要はナンパだよ。むしろ仲良くなりたいってわけ？
Yeah. Soujyuro wasn't sure how to respond. He nodded slowly without really understanding the implication of what Kinomi had said.
けど、どうすればいいのかわからない。そもそもどうやって同い年の女の子と仲良く話ができるんだ？
There's so much of a cultural barrier between America and Japan, I couldn't tell you.
クラスの女どもとは話してんじゃん。あれでいいんだっつの。俺は羨ましいっつの。
Yeah, like... That is actually a good point.
持ち前の天然系で押してけばいいべ。
Honestly? Not bad advice.
山育ちってのは希少なアイデンティティだと思うぜ。
You gotta be
珍しいものは生か
mysterious.
さないとさ。
Use that charm.
そうかな。 珍しいというのはあんまりいいことじゃない気がする。だいたいそもそも嫌われている場合はどうすればいいんだ。クラスのみんなは親切だけど相手はハリセンボンだ。
Alice the Hedgehog.
この際ハリネズミでもいい。
そういう場合はめげなきゃいいんだよ。相手が折れるのを待つって寸法だな。トゲだけに。
Oh, okay. Sojuro's brow sunk deeper still.
この例え話はダメだ。
He needed more concrete material to work with.
バカ。女なんてのは機嫌を取ってればいいんだよ。まずは女の趣味とか大事にしてるもんとか聞いて、そこをフォローすればいい。自分の都合より相手の都合だ。まずは外堀から攻めろってことだな。
Yeah, I can actually get behind this advice. I would say that's pretty accurate. From my experience, at least.
外回りか。
It's complicated, man. It's really... This part is complicated. It's tough.
も
It's
ち
tough out here.
その後はまあ結局はこれが一番効果的なんだけどね。
I don't know if I agree
袖
with
の下っ
this.
てやつ。
I'm sure it works
プ
with
レゼ
some
ントで
girls,
釣
but
れ。
I don't know, man. I don't know, Chief.
その時の需要と供給さえ合えば嫌われてても受け取ってもらえる。受け取らせちまえば、
Wow, we're really
あとはそれが
going
義
in
理
the
になるってもん
psychology
だ。
route. That's a little manipulative, though. Just a little bit. I gotta give you gifts so that you feel like you owe me, and then once you owe me it, you're mine. Hinome then proclaimed with an odd sense of pride that this approach had resulted in only failure for him. Exactly, it's terrible advice.
けど問題がある木の実。確かにご飯とかそういうのをおごってもらうと嬉しい。
そんな金はないってんだろ。
It's more complicated than that, actually.
仕方ないね。そういうしずきくんのために一丁割のいいバイトを紹介してやろうじゃね
Soujyuro,
えの
man,
よ。
you gotta take some feet pics, bro. You have no idea how much I'm making on the side. 2,000 yen a month. I got this one person who really likes my feet. They slid from the side of the classroom deeper to one corner, to in front of the lockers where no one ever stayed for long. It would be days before Soujyuro realized the suggestion he was receiving was of the illegitimate kind. The kind he should not have shared with anyone. You see those? These are your grippers. These are your main selling point. And that's your big toe. The big toe can be... What? That night, dinner at the Mage was a feast of bread. Yum. I want garlic bread. Soft slices lay stacked at the center of the table, surrounded by variously colored jams. In a bowl was salad, mainly lettuce, with a small plate of unevenly cut ham. Mmm. Soujyuro may have had no frame of reference for what an average family dinner should be, but he could tell this was most certainly not normal. In truth, it was a great case of laziness. Hey! For a Japanese person, absolutely. For an American? Nah, dog, that's a lot of effort for dinner. Because at this point, we just DoorDash.
アリス、新しいの買っておいてって言わなかった？
今日は一日部屋にこもっていたから。第一、チョコレートを食べるのはあなただけよ。
Damn.
自分のものは自分で調達をするべき。
You could have thought of her, man. Rude. For these two girls, however, this dinner seemed to be completely normal. They had a system of regularly taking turns being in charge of meals, and tonight was Alice's turn. Yeah, that's why it feels a little bit less extravagant, I'd imagine. Normally, she would spend as little time and effort as possible, only truly applying herself when there was something to celebrate. Of course, Soujyuro was none the wiser to Alice's unique approach to food preparation. For him, it was a plain, lackluster meal. And when it came to dinner... Not saying anything to each other was another staple of their meals. Why even eat together in the first place? The sounds of cutlery, the scraping of chairs, and the tick-tock of the clock were the only things to be heard in the sunroom. Soujyuro himself had already eaten. At this moment, he was watching the goings-on from the drawing room.
Soujyuro, 9時からアルバイトでしょ？行ってらっしゃい。私たちのことは気にしないでいいから。
ああ、じゃあ行ってくる。
Soujyuro donned his coat with a goodbye nod, and Soujyuro glanced again at the sunroom. He momentarily locked eyes with Alice, or so he imagined. She had been ignoring him all day, and not just refusing to talk to him, she had avoided him so much so as to not look at him all day until this very moment. He could understand if he was annoying her as the outsider in the mansion, but he felt no animosity in her gaze just now.
今の様子を見てたのかな
Maybe. Soujyuro looked nervously at his surroundings for a moment before heading to the foyer. You okay? Alice only let her gaze return to normal when she was completely sure he was gone. Aoko was appalled by Alice's brazen display. So much so, her immaculate veneer of apathy crumbled.
何？献立に不満でもあるの？青子。
Yeah, and...
もちろんあるけど、いつものことだし慣れてるわよ。
お。
私が呆れてるのは、あんたの意地の悪さの方。
Damn, I like how honest she is about this.
徹底的に無視してるくせに、相手の反応を伺ってるなんてめめしくない？罠張って待ち受けるようなもんじゃない。
Damn, can't even admit that she's watching him.
彼の反応なんて探ってないわ。そもそも興味がないもの。それと、今のは差別発言ね。
Damn, I actually...
めめしいという表現は女性軽視に過ぎるわ。
I was not expecting this and like that, then to actually bring that up.
今の場合なら、あなたは矛盾していると言ってちょうだい。
うわ、自覚ありときた。
Oh, that was a disgusting sound effect. I hate that. Choosing not to rise to her roommate's jibe, Alice resumed eating. Aoko tore off pieces of bread and ate them one by one, anger still visible on her face.
じゃあここからは青崎青子としてじゃなく共犯者としての質問ね。
Oh no. Yeah, Soujyuro's cooked.
アリス的に彼を見逃していいと思える判断材料はない？
You think?
ありえないけど、実は彼も魔術師でしたなんてオチであったとしても、ここに住まわせるのは容認できない？
We just gotta treat him. Aoko's gotta Operation Turn Sonoji into a mage.
その理由なら認めるわ。彼を許すのではなく、そんなことに気づかなかった私たちへのペナルティとして。そうね。今のは絶対にありえない話だけど、それと同じに絶対の結論もまたないわ。彼がここに住む選択を飲む場合すらあるかもしれない。気の迷いは私にだってあるのだし。
ええ、そういうことよ。今は私との義理とかプライドで冷静を保ってるあんただけど、あいつの努力次第で少しは。
それは諦めて。彼が何をしようと。
Wow. No faith in him.
あなたも知っていると思うけど。
Alice had never been the type to let her guard down around others. The young witch despised humans, having recreated so many of their objects in fairy tales. I mean, I guess you develop a certain sense of apathy for the world if you've experienced so much of it and read so much of it. It's hard not to be apathetic towards humanity as a whole, especially if you enjoy history and learning about like human race really. But I don't like to live that way. I think it's a little too draining.
そんなのはあんた個人のトラウマでしょ？自分の意固地さを魔女の血統云々で棚上げするのはそれこそめめしいわ。
Forget Shiro. Aoko is the biggest sexist in Type Moon.
いいじゃない。嫌いなら嫌いではっきりしてれば。私が気に食わないのはね、あんたのどっちつかずの態度よ、アリス。
どっちつかずの態度？
そう。無視するなら徹底して無視してやれって言ってるの。ガチガチに守りを固めて、そのくせ城門だけ開けて、獲物が油断して入ってきたら串刺しにする気満々とか、相棒として見てられないわ。
Wow, Aoko is being an absolute savage here.
あいつにできることなんて、閉ざされた門を開けることぐらいだっていうのに。
She's really calling out
その機会さえなくすのはどうなの？
big time.
ごめんなさい、青子。もう少し簡単に言って。
Bruh.
その例えはちょっと。
Alice seemed unable to grasp Aoko's metaphor. Meanwhile, Aoko had it up to here with her roommate's lack of self-awareness and was starting to lose her cool.
だから興味ないとか言っておきながら粉かけるなってこと。あんなにチラチラ盗み見たら あいつ変に勘違いしちゃうかもしれないでしょ。アリスはああ見えて本当は自分と仲直りしたがっているに違いない。じゃあ早速部屋に押しかけてみようとか。
She's not wrong. That is the kind of thought that Sonoji gets into his mind.
そういうことに。
Yeah, that's his personality.
少なくとも私だったらいい加減イライラして、話があるなら校舎裏まで来いって決着つけかねないレベル。この毒。
Excuse me? Am I playing a real game? What the fuck? So this is how Aoko really acts around Alice. Aoko just called her a bitch. Oh my god. What? This isn't real. Huh?
そうだったのね。気をつけるわ。別に彼と話をする気はないんだし、私も彼を見ていたというより彼の手足を見ていたん
Damn,
だ
Alice
し。
is like biting her lip. God damn, why is he so fucking And then Ako's like, what? What?
手足ってなんで？
Because he's built different! Aoko, he's built different!
手足は手足よ。彼個人には思うところはないけど。
Yeah, the stunts he was able to perform, like, he's gotta be a muscular boy.
それが少しだけ気になってつい視線で追っていたのね。
あの夜って遊園地のこと？なんかしたっけ？
Yeah, nothing. Nope, he didn't do a single cool thing. Alice's expression soured. She still felt the sting of her defeat.
飛んだでしょ彼。
Yeah, exactly.
レールの上から私のダンプティに向かって。
ええ、そんなこと言ってたわね。勢いでつい1メートルぐらいだから飛んじゃったとか。
Aoko had not actually seen it in person, luckily. All she knew was that the spell she had placed on Soujyuro was part of the reason he survived that jump of death. Alice, on the other hand, had observed the whole scene from the clock tower. It had only lasted an instant, but it had burned itself into her mind's eye. More than when her precious moon had fallen in Aoko's hands, and flat snark had come tumbling down.
でもそれがどうしたの？卵の敵討ちってわけ？
ダンプティは壊れるのが仕事だから敵討ちも何もないわ。ただ人間の体ってあんな風に動くんだなって。
Okay. Why does Alice speak as if she's not human is interesting. As it goes, for someone with as little human interaction as Alice, Sojuro's leap must have appeared quite remarkable. She just has, like, a little bit of awe. Particularly because his legs were orders of magnitude less capable than those of an animal in the forest. And yet, even with such feeble legs, with those meek arms of his, he managed to fly through the open air like a bird. They're trying to, like, make... Like, yeah, Soujyuro kind of looks small. But bro definitely has a sleeper build. Like, dude is literally, like, the definition of a jacked fucking short king. Because what, Sonoji is probably, like, 5'7". I mean, that's pretty... I mean, for a Japanese male, that's pretty average. But in, like, the grand scheme of the world, you know? Like, when I say grand scheme of the world, I mostly mean Europe. Because, like, literally everywhere else is, like, pretty short. I speak as a 5'3". To her, it was akin to the feelings city folk get when they see a wild creature in its natural habit. And she kind of horny for
気にし
him.
ないで。機会があるならもう一度
Oh,
見
you
たい
will.
と思っただけ。
Bro isn't done doing crazy feats
別
yet.
に彼に何を期待しているわけじゃないわ。
Nah, it's him. Don't lie.
なるほど。アリスのプロイって大体が人型じゃないしね。単に物珍しさで見ていただけか。
Oh my god. Excuse me. Aoko sighed and released the tension from her shoulders. Damn, look at the titty! She was disappointed to discover that Alice's behavior stemmed from simple curiosity, like that of a child with a new toy. And Alice was in no position to take issue with her reaction. And how could she? She was not entirely sure what it was that she herself was feeling. Love.
夕食、明日は私が作るから。
Yeah, I gotta make something actually fucking delicious, you know, instead of this fucking duck food.
試験前だってのにこんなしょぼくれたもん食べさせられたら一夜漬けする気合も湧かないわよ。
ご自由に。私も手が空いて助かるわ。
Bro, it took you like 20 minutes to make this. Don't even... Night came and went in the mansion. For better or worse, the disturbances caused by the foreign invader had not yet caused the kettle to boil over. Yeah. Let's come home. What are we gonna do? We're gonna talk to Elisu. That bird animation was weird. The next morning at 6:30, as sunlight spread out across the sky, Soujyuro walked to school with Aoko in the chilly morning air.
いい？洋館にいるときは極力一人にならないこと。
Okay. What if I am, though? It was her intention to keep Soujyuro safe until he left the mansion. Nonetheless...
眠い。6時から登校とか。
Yeah, it sucks, don't
あん
it?
たも働き者ね。
そうでもないよ。30分仕出しを手伝うだけだし。
Whoa, he's built different. Damn, he looks good. His work ethic was a little too strong for a student entering finals.
それより青崎、無理してないか？別にこっちに付き合うことないんだぞ。
ご心配なく。生徒会室で仮眠取るから。約束だし、もうまでは一緒に行くわよ。
Very kind, I appreciate that. But internally, Aoko was worried. What traps did her roommate have in store for him? The mirror is not a trap anymore, thankfully. She could not imagine Alice had planned anything to go down the woods, but she wanted to be safer than sorry. Wow. The least she could do was accompany Soujyuro to school. That much she was firmly committed to. Any traps that presented themselves could then be dealt with on the spot. Well, not dealt with so much as destroyed, since that was Aoko's forte, but that would be enough to keep him safe for the time being.
帰り道に関してはアリスもそこまで暇ではないと信じるしかないんだけど。
ん？
If Alice was willing to put all her energy into a new trap after the first had failed, then they were as good as dead anyway. But Aoko would cross that road when she came to it. It all depended on how deep Alice's dislike of Soujyuro really went. It would have to be enough to make her abandon her pride as a witch, something she had protected fervently until now. If that were the case, Aoko knew she would never be able to keep him safe. The moment 24/7 protection became necessary was the moment she had failed. Her character led her to focus on what she could do in the here and now and ignore the rest. And this current plan of hers was her best attempt at doing right by everyone. I think we're gonna make it to school safe. We should, at least. They left behind the Konji estate, and the two remained together until the residential area at the bottom of the hill, where Aoko glanced casually at
とこ
Soujyuro.
ろで何か考えてる？
Surprisingly, Soujyuro saw through her harmless question and sensed the bigger issue. How was he gonna win Alice over? In fact, he'd been thinking about that very question. According to his friend, there was 3 basic approaches he could take. One was the roundabout approach.
こいつは時間がかかるが最も自然だ。
Okay.
人間ってのは自分が好きなものを大切にされるとコロッと気を許しちまう。仲間意識ってやつだな。
Honestly, like, he had, like, a piece of really bad advice, but Kinomo has actually not... that's pretty solid. I agree with that. In other words, instead of focusing on the person one wishes to win over, one should focus on their interests. Absolutely. Get someone to talk about themselves, and then, bam! It helps out a lot. The issue is actually getting them to talk about themselves, because I feel like it's easier in person. Online, it's really difficult, because people just don't fucking care to talk to you unless they actually like you immediately. It was a surprisingly mature opinion coming from Kinomi. Unfortunately, Soujyuro had no idea what sort of things Alice liked. She seemed very fond of the mansion, but what could he do? Clean it for her? He sensed that would have a reverse effect. He had the distinct feeling she would not want him touching what was precious to her. The second approach was to take the inner track.
でもやっぱり本人を落とすのが一番早い。俺たちに魅力がないのなら、魅力のある外付け装備に頼るのだ。
I mean, if you're looking for, like, quick satisfaction or, like, one night stand or something very basic, I suppose your wallet could help for that. but if you want something long-lasting, that's not the best idea.
そうプレゼントなんだよしずきくん
A quick and dirty strategy, the assassin's strike. Manipulate someone's feelings with an expensive gift. To Soujyuro, this sounded like his best chance. The approach was easy for him to grasp, and he appreciated its simplicity. However, he had the same concerns as with the first approach. A step was missing, and without the step, the plan was bound to fail.
あとはまあ剣ってやつ俺にはよくわかんないけどさやりすぎると悪い印象を持たれるとか殿下が言ってたな
Sometimes you just have to play the waiting game, and if it doesn't happen, it don't happen. You just kind of have to deal with it.
私今落とされてるって意識させちゃダメなんだとよ付き合った後であれ私落とされたと気づかせるのが上等なんだとか
Yeah, I actually agree with that. Though Soujyuro did not quite grasp the details, he understood the basic idea. Don't press your luck. He knew that much was good advice. He would have to try extremely hard to get on Alice's good side, and he could tell it would be a long process to get there. Soujyuro recalled the time he had wandered inside a fox's territory in the mountains. He had left some food on the ground for the fox, and then it never bothered him again. I guess that's kind of a similar thing, yeah? What is considered goodwill and kindness varies from person to person, exactly. But if there's enough goodwill from one side, regardless of whether that goodwill is reciprocated, the other side will eventually start to feel an obligation to do so. That was key. Psychology.
考えてるよ。とりあえず自分にできることとかしたいことをしようと思う。安心してくれ。青崎に忠告されたことすら。
Soujyuro seemed ready to face things head on. His answer did little to reassure Aoko, however. She found herself more concerned about his safety than ever before. Ooh, this track is interesting.
学校にあるようなほうきが欲しい。
She's gonna gift the witch a broom. She's gonna gift the witch a broom. That's awesome. I love it. That's cute. Also, why, dude? Why is she bad though? She's a baddie.
しずきの家、アパートよね。
いや、ちょっと気になるところがあって掃除がしたいんだ。ゴミ袋もあると助かる。
無駄
I
な
like how
出費は
short
で
she is
きない
compared
っ
to
て言ってた
Soujyuro.
くせに。
Maybe Soujyuro's taller than I gave him credit for. Damn, you don't have to be savage, bro. Why don't I want to date this girl? She's okay. I gotta stop.
まあどうでもいいけど、うちのでよければ使う？
I
貸してあげましょう
I
か。
I need it. Like I want it. Like
多分一日じゃ終わらないから自分で買うよ。
exactly.
元から欲しかったものだし、あると便利だよ。
Yes. I've always wanted my own broom. Brooms are nice to have around because brooms clean, and I can clean with my broom. Can't you tell that I actually want a broom for me and no one else but me? A broom. Broom. I want you with my broom. We can clean this room together. Soujyuro was on his way home from his part-time job after school. It was 4 in the afternoon. It's 9 in the afternoon! And your eyes are the size of flat snark. 2 hours earlier than his part-time job would have normally ended. The Mad Bear's head chief chef had gotten in trouble with the accountant for making a student work the day before exams. Thus, Soujyuro's boss had tearfully sent him home early. And that is when it happened. The interruption to his standard schedule must have been just the shock he needed. Normally, he would have met up with Aoko after she was done with student council affairs and gone home with her. However, today, Soujyuro was asking the other students who worked at the same place if they knew any shops in the area where he could buy a broom.
田舎者の趣味って理解不能ね。推強すぎ。
Bro, I just want a broom. Never mind, you suck.
うちの近くにまっついラーメン屋あるでしょ。あそこの通りを終わりまで行けば起きたって金物店がある。一式揃えるなら西口のホームセンターより安く上がるわ。どうでもいいけど、私のチャリ使う？どうせ試験明けまで使わないし。
Soujyuro's eyes lit up as if he had met his savior, but biking uphill to the mansion, let alone with a package to carry, was not a pretty thought.
いや、自転車には乗ってみたいけど、今回は遠慮するよ。
Saying farewell to his coworker, he headed to the hardware store. He needed a cheap and sturdy bamboo broom and a large dustpan to go with it. If possible, a pushcart and stick for a splint would have been nice too. As it happened, Soujyuro wanted quite a few things. He's gonna blow his whole paycheck on Alice. I mean, same though. I mean, yeah. Alice returned to her work after waking from her nap. The Kuonji estate had an annex that housed a library. The library was full of books handed down to her from her mother, so it was Alice's territory, such that even Aoko dared not enter. The mansion was a witch's abode left behind by the times. The library was a fairy tale quarters lost to the ages. It was a natural sanctuary for the young witch who could command ploys to do her bidding. She relied on her memory to recall the location of each book on the many shelves, and then she saw it. Upon raising her head, she was met with the most unusual of sights. Her elegant eyebrows bristled in distaste. From that moment on, she failed to accomplish anything she had planned for that day. What did she see? She was instead forced to stare at the strange sight outside her window, eyebrows fixed in that position until the sunset. Okay, did Soujyuro come home with the broom? Oh, that's a pretty shot. Ah, well. Moving into the grand mansion on the hill had not brought any major changes to Soujyuro's day-to-day schedule. He woke up, went to his part-time job, ate breakfast, and went to school. Classes came and went, still strange and new, broken up by rare and brief moments of rest until the school day ended. He left school, went to his part-time job, slept, woke up, and studied for exams. Just very mundane, normal life. A modest life for a modest young man, continuing every day in the same fashion despite his best efforts to change his fortune. But nothing ever really changes. Whether Aoko was by his side in the mansion, as was frequently the case, or whether Alice was making him drink some potions she prepared before going to bed. The former was an attempt by Aoko to make him feel better. The latter was some attempt to keep him safe, even if he did not fully appreciate it. Then, one day, a day like any other, while Soujyuro was pouring himself some tea as he worried over the lack of change in his life. His relationship with Alice was the same as ever, but there was one major change this morning. He was drinking black tea instead of green. Though there were all sorts of different types of tea to be found in the kitchen, a newcomer to the world of tea like Soujyuro could not tell one of them from the next. Naturally, his tea-making skills were limited to tea bags, one of which he placed in his cup before returning to the dining table. Alice and Aoko were already seated. The two were eating in silence. In this household, it was everyone for themselves when it came to breakfast. A diplomatic description of their breakfast would be simple. The more accurate description would be 2 slices of stale bread prepared in seconds. Man, that sucks. Aoko exchanged a word or two with Alice, took a sip of tea, and stood up from her seat. Since it was winter break for the high schooler Alice, she returned to her room after eating as she normally did, while Aoko headed to the front door, shoes in hand, ready for school. After hurriedly cleaning the table, Soujyuro rushed out the door after Aoko. Together they walked down the long hill in direction of school. They had spent 3 days following this very simple routine. Damn, 3-day time skip, alright. Where no...
ところで、あれから動きはあった?
No. Where's the broom, though? School had ended and evening had arrived. Buttered bread roll in one hand, Alice replied with a simple, silent shake of her head.
そう。ならあっちも
they're
次
talking
の手を
about
考
that.
えているんでしょうね。魔術師本体の居場所は見当ついてる?
God, Alice is so fucking pretty. Especially with that necklace. Her response was exactly the same. Without showing the slightest sign of dejection, she continued to chew the roll and took a stab at her salad.
そう。私も試験が終わったら手伝うから、それまで悪いけど一人でやってて。
I love the face that Alice gives sometimes. It's the definition of a cold stare. Like, god damn, bro. She is so mad. Alice's face grew dour as if she had something to get off her chest.
問題ないでしょ? アリスはもう休みに入ってるんだから、 一日全部使えるじゃない。
Alice was indeed on vacation and could spend all day, every day on her work as a mage. Yet she had spent the past few days holed up in the library instead. She was hardly devoting herself to dealing with the challenger, as Aoko put it.
アリス聞いてる？
What is on her mind? What happened, man?
分かってる。今夜か
Oh,
ら
she
そっ
looks
ちもやる
sad. She looks sad. Oh. Sighing, she stood up. What was bothering Alice and what was it she wanted to say? What had she been doing only 2 hours earlier? The young witch took her leave from the breakfast table without offering a single clue. Misaki High was a private school, and as such its winter break started earlier than public schools. The end-of-term ceremony was in mid-December, followed by a brief respite before the next term began. So, Alice actually does go to school, okay. Of course, that was if and only if they overcame the classic obstacle lying between them and an extended break from school, final exams. The radio continued its broadcast late into the night. A thermos of hot tea eliminated the need to venture down to the kitchen. An electric blanket kept away the winter cold, and a crab-shaped pastry staved off any dinnertime hunger. These were the lengths Aoko had gone to. She needed to ensure that every aspect of her surroundings helped her pull a successful all-nighter.
期末試験1日目、ご苦労様。それで、生まれ変わる覚悟はできた？
She's talking to herself. That's awesome. No, oh, okay, it is Soujyuro. Sojuro's like, I don't even know what a division symbol is! Soujyuro nodded earnestly. Upon returning from work, he encountered not the mage he expected, but the Demon Student Council President, Naozaki. Half a day earlier, the first day of exams were over, and Soujyuro was about to head back to the mansion, where he hoped to put his plan to practice when...
今夜、私の部屋で監禁。
He's like, No! My Alice time!
夕方からのアルバイトは当然キャンセル。ちょっと本気であの点数は
Damn,
ありえない
he
から。
looks so happy. He's like, dude, yeah, oh, I gotta study them. That would be me, bruh. I'd be like, no, I ain't studying shit. Cold blue grin greeted him in the hallway. Clenched in her fist was Sojuro's exam paper. What score did he get? Mr. Yamashiro had no doubt said.
転校してきたばかりだし、しょうがないよね。
Yeah, we would need a, what's it called? A pure magic? Or true magic? Whatever. But he had snatched the exam out of the teacher's hands the minute to try to show her. What did he get? That was how Soujyuro had ended up in Aoko's room instead of the room in the attic to which he was accustomed. Though her situation was far from normal, at the end of the day, she was an adolescent girl like any other. Naturally, she felt uncomfortable letting a boy her own age into her room. However, his grades were truly something that called for desperate measures. That explained why her mood was even worse than normal today, and the vein on her forehead was pulsing visibly with anger.
先に自分の復習済ませる。あんたはそのテーブル使ってて。
Aoko turned her back to him and sat down at her favorite desk. Soujyuro was left standing before a cheap-looking glass table.
なんかいろいろと慣れないな。なあ、青崎。この青いのなん
It's
だ
a guitar! Restless, Soujyuro found his eyes drawn to the guitar, propped up in the corner.
なんか薄いし青いし、とんがってるし。
That's
と
funny.
青崎のことだし。
Man doesn't even know what a guitar is. That's
もしかし
crazy.
なくても武器か。
You could use it as a weapon.
楽器よそれ。エレキはともかく、アコギは音楽室で似たようなのあったでしょ？あとこれ以上青
Like,
々
I'm
言
trying to
ったら
study, brother!
そのとんがってるので殴るからね。
Soujyuro plopped himself down onto a cushion, struggling to suppress the desire to retort that it was a weapon after all.
ちょっとは落ち着きなさいよ。いつもは耳の遠い大型犬みたいに鈍感なくせに。
In fact, it was Aoko who was oblivious for once. For this part, Soujyuro could not figure out why he felt so restless either. Suffice it to say, they were both pretty clueless in this moment.
もしかして内装？この部屋の家具のグレードが今とは違うから不思議がってるのね。ここ。ベッド以外は私の家から持ち込んだものなの。引っ越してから2年経つけど、まだ屋敷には馴染んでないでしょ。
Though she misunderstood the real reason for Sojuro's nervousness, Aoko seemed satisfied that she had resolved Sojuro's anxiety for the time being and returned to her studies. She flipped through her notes and textbook as if fast-forwarding a tape. There was no opening for an outsider like him to intrude in her high-speed study session. Repelled by her intensity, he retreated to his table. He was at least sensitive enough to pick up on her desire to be left alone. It was a testament to Soujyuro that having his needs utterly ignored was now second nature to him, to the extent that he could now happily go about his business in solitude. Rip, bro. 2 hours passed. Then, as the clock neared 11, Aoko's speed and concentration began to slip. Seeing his window of opportunity, Soujyuro seized the moment to strike up a conversation.
青崎、ちょっといいかな。
何？
He spoke hesitantly, not bothering to turn to face him. She continued to flip the pages of her textbook, albeit at a slower speed than
この
before.
3日間、青崎たちの夕食事情を見てきたけど、
Yeah, there's some tension between them.
君たちの食事はいつもああなのか？
That's a fair question.
そうだけど、おかしい？
Yeah, you guys like don't even like each other, basically.
そう言われると困るな。ただ、学校じゃみんな楽しそうだった。誰かと食事をとるってことは、ああいう風になることだって思ってた。だから、
She's
も
like,
しか
is
す
it
ると
me or are they always like this?
もしかしないわよ。別にあんたのせいでアリスと話さないわけじゃないわ。
Aoko spoke calmly with her back still turned, seemingly unaware of what he was getting at.
張り詰めた食卓だな。
Mm-hmm.
青崎とアリスは仲がいいと思ってたのに。
That's what you would assume, right? She neither confirmed nor denied his statement. She was, however, surprised by the disappointing tone in which he had made it.
張り詰めた食卓っていうのは合ってるわね。アリスが何回あんたの飲み物にメスカリンを入れてたかなんてもう覚えてないし。
What?
昨日なんか堂々とサラダの中に7かまどなんか混ざってる
What?
し。
Why is she drugging him? What? Huh? What? This is like... What? What? Why is she drugging him with psychedelics? What's she gonna do next? Give him LSD? What? I just want to see Sonoji tripping on LSD. Like, yo, look at the colors, bro. Aoko, the ceiling's red. What the fuck is Rowan, though? I'm looking that up. I gotta look that up. Rowan. Hypoallergenic earrings? No, that's not it. Is it a drug? What the fuck is that? I don't know what this is. If you guys know, leave a comment, because I would like to know. I mean, I could only assume due to context clues that it's another type of drug, but jeez, the fucking fact that she's putting mescaline in his drink is crazy, brother. Oh my god.
ほんと。あの子何考えてるんだろう。
A bitter smile has spread across her face in reminiscence. The pages of her textbook continued to turn.
メスカリン？
I don't think you want to know, Soujyuro.
サボテンから取れるアルカロイドよ。アリスが使う以上、ただの幻覚剤じゃないでしょうけどね。と、私はこんなもんでいっか。
The fact that she knew, like, the actual, like, science behind the drug is sending me, like, goddamn, is she smart? I don't know what the hell the peyote cactus is. Obviously, I know what an alkaloid is, but what the fuck is a peyote cactus? With that, she slammed shut her fourth textbook of the night. After having scarcely changed position the whole night, she finally turned in her chair to face him.
さあ、今度はあんたを仕込まなくちゃね。
Ah, this music is sending me in a good mood. Ah, yeah, we're... Operation turn Sonoji into a genius.
今日の4科目の答案。実に総重郎らしい出来栄えでそっとしそうになったわ。
Watch his test scores not even be that bad, like a 60 or something. Her tone was light, but her gaze was heavy as she stared at Soujyuro, seated cross-legged on the floor.
原告、地理、数学、電子工学。
How do you expect him to know any of these? Besides, like, how to count, basically.
あの調子であと2日続けたら、 冬休みが消えるのは当然でしょうね。
Yeah, he'll get...
そうなると困るのは私なのよ。
That would
実際
suck. Have to spend your winter break at school. Or like the study hall or whatever it is, like extra lessons or whatever.
いや俺も困るぞ。休みなのに学校に行くのはなんか気が乗らない。
Soujyuro calmly corrected her.
そりゃあ私のセリフだ。あんたが学校に行くってことは必然
Yeah,
こ
hell,
っち
she'll
ま
have
で
to
飛ばし
spend
が
her
来るって
time
の。
watching over him. All she could think about as much as she tried not to was Mr. Yamashiro and his annoying grin. And she
そ
hates
れ以
him.
前に私の目が黒いうちはオール赤なんてやつは許さない。
And that's her pride. I tell you, man, Mr. Yamashiro is gonna end up being the villain of this game, I swear to God.
本来なら少年から叩き直すところだけど、ま、あんたはいろいろ事情があるからとりあえず点数だけで勘弁してあげる。私もテストは一夜漬けで片付ける方だから、あんた一人仕込むのにそう時間はかからないだろうし。
It's true, though. It is one of the better ways to study, is to go over it fervently, and then fall asleep, and then right when you wake up, go over it again. It usually helps. Although I'm not sure about how much of that will stick in your brain years later. Soujyuro's expression openly soured in response to his declaration. It was obvious he did not think he needed her meddling in his studies.
あんたね、苦労するのは私とあなた、どっちだと思う？
Oh, it's obviously gonna be her, right? She has to have an aneurysm every time he gets something wrong. Soujyuro got the feeling that it would be him, but he nodded slowly nonetheless. Then again, it would probably take more effort on her part than on his, and in many cases, he knew there was no way to talk her out of it.
この度はご迷惑をおかけします。
Soujyuro summarily bowed his head to show gratitude and willingness to work.
よろしい。安心なさい。私だって鬼じゃないから。
Are you sure about that?
別に平均点狙うってわけでもなし。予定通りこなしていけば3時には眠れるわよ。
He had plenty of obstacles ahead of him, but that sense of humility might be enough to see him through.
って何仏心出してるんだ私。いいしずきくん。この後頼られちゃたまんないから釘刺しておくけど、私がマンツーマンで誰かを仕込むなんてことめったにないから。
Yeah, I would love a private lesson with Aoko.
これはあく
Be
ま
lit.
で異例中の異例だって覚えておいてね。
Bro looks so tired! She spoke more to convince herself than him, but his expression still darkened. It made one want to hang a sign around his neck that read, "Please take me home." Like an abandoned pet, Aoko chided herself for being so soft. Bro is literally the dog of the house. I'm gonna start barking. For some reason in that moment, she recalled that it had been raining that day they met each other. Oh, okay. Time passed like the falling grains of an hourglass. Damn, they really pulled that all-nighter, alright.
結局
She's like, I got it. I just want to sleep, man. Aoko squinted as light poured through the window, and she downed another cup of tea. She lost count of exactly how many she had drank long ago. Man, I wish I liked tea. It would give me such a larger variety of shit to drink. But I just don't like hot beverages. I don't. I wish that I did. They're nasty. The thing is, like, cold tea is fine, but the tea that I like that's cold is typically filled with sugar and preservatives, so it's like I can't really drink that all the time. As say as I have my cherry coke.
一晩かかったね、大崎。
Soujyuro picked up on what she left unspoken. Aoko had used up all her pep. She dead, bruh. And staying up all night, but also in shouting at him. He looked pale and uncomfortable, just as he had all night long.
ええ、甘く見てたわ。あんた
You're
のこと
far more stupid than I gave you credit for.
だから褒めても何も出ないって。
It's not a compliment.
ある意味褒めるに値するかもね。
Wait, what? She was at the end of her rope, but she could not help the bite of pride, the bit of pride that swelled up in her. Oh, is she being genuine? Is this the moment? His lack of even the most basic comprehension was shocking. Even taking into account his upbringing in the wilderness, she's just like, wow. You really need help, huh? His ability was that of a middle school student, and that was... Oh no. Oh no. Preparing him for exams by teaching him new concepts and ideas was a waste of time. Rote memorization was his only hope for passing. Oh boy, everything he memorized could collapse like a house of cards afterwards for all she cared, so long as he remembered for its exams. Assuming he had the capacity to be a good student in the first place had been her mistake. It took all night to cover the content for just 4 exams, and she still did not feel confident he could apply what he did so earnestly tried to memorize.
でもね、真面目なのはいいことだけど、あんた暗記するのに時間かかりすぎ。
そこは多めに見てほしい。今まで頭より体で覚えることのが多かったんだ。
Aoko let out an exasperated sigh. Naturally, physical prowess mattered more in mountain life than the intellectual kind, but still.
まあいいわ。これで山城からあんたの成績について相談されることもないでしょうし。紅茶、もう一杯入れてくれる？
Soujyuro stood up and obeyed as Aoko stretched her aching back. My back! Oh, my back! She had apparently bought the tea bags in bulk, so there were still plenty to use.
まったく無駄遣いだな、青崎は。
He spoke under his breath so she wouldn't hear. It made him somehow happy to see her so tired and unfocused after the grueling all-night session she had given him. It did not cross his mind that these excess tea bags, far from being an indulgent purchase, were purchased intentionally to sustain them through the night. A relaxed expression came across Aoko's face as she watched him, naive and peaceful as could be.
悪くないけど、せめてリーフティーで入れられるように仕込まなくちゃダメかな。
That could... Hmm.
やっぱり味は違うのか？
違う違う、もう全然。ま、正直私はどうでもいいんだけど、アリスはね、かなりお茶にはうるさいよ。
Of course she's the picky one.
そうだ、宗十郎、アリスとうまくいってる？
We haven't even talked yet! Aoko cheerfully slumped over the table, now covered with textbooks and scribbled notes. Soujyuro watched her with a hint of resentment in his eyes.
彼女と会えるのは食事の時だけで、食事と言ったらあれだろ。どうやって仲良くなれって言うんだ。
そう？私は十分脈ありだと思ったけど。そっちはアリスを怖がってないし、アリスはそっちを追い出す理由を見つけようと躍起になってるし。
She's really like, she's shipping them, like, honestly, low-key.
いい条件よ、これって。
全然わからないな。あの子とこっちの関係は遊園地前の青崎と俺の関係と同じじゃないか。一体どこがいい条件なんだ？
とりあえず反目し合ってはいないでしょ。一方通行の関係だけど、それはそれ。アリスにしちゃ上出来っていうか、理由を探している
She
時点
hasn't
で
found
可
a
能
reason
性
to
ありっ
off
て
him
ね。
yet, so like there is a chance. So you're telling me there's a chance?
あの子は反感に応えることが癖になっちゃってるから、大抵相手を自滅させちゃうのよ。
Damn. Okay, I'd be scared too. Nani? Nani deshita? It's my Daru voice. Her ominous words only confuse Sojo further.
知ってしまえば単純な話なんだけどね、あの子の場合。ただ、
難しいよ、青崎は。
Bro, I think I was spiked mescaline, honestly. I think I'm tripping balls right now. I'm joking. I'm just enjoying myself a little too much. Well, I gotta sneeze! Ah! Oh, no, it won't come out! No! No! Oh man, I'm fucking dying. He carried their teacups back to the table as he spoke. Aoko picked hers up and took a sip as if to dispel her exhaustion. Oh, this is hurting.
確かに君の言う通りだ。
Go riz up Alice, you dumb
俺は
nut.
まだあの子の顔しか知らない。クオンジ・アリスという名前すら定かじゃないのは。
He followed Aoko's lead and took a sip of his own. His cup contained not tea, but plain hot water. Why would you drink water hot, bro?
あの子のこと教えてほしい？
Obviously, he has to make the tea with starts with hot water, but yes, please tell me about her. Aoko scrutinized him carefully as she sat. Most boys would have been captivated by her gaze in that moment. Yeah, bro. Those piercing blue eyes, those giant, luscious eyebrows.
いや、そういうことは本人に聞いてあげるべきだと思う。
I can respect that. But he ignored her and stared straight ahead as if speaking directly to Alice herself.
そうね。ほんと、あんたってアリス好みの対応をするわ。
We're doing this the Alice way.
ねえ、前から気になってたけど、客室でアリスに何を言ったの？いくら私との約束とはいえ、あの子が部外者を半日も放置するなんて
She's
あ
so
りえないの？
excited. This is an interesting side of Aoko that I'm actually really enjoying. He thought back to that moment. He could recall only 2 or 3 words he'd exchanged with Alice after awakening in the guest room. He did not recall the conversation being anything special. But he could not bring himself to casually share it with Aoko now. After all.
ねえ、どんなセリフであの子の気を変えたの？
Aoko eagerly pressed him for answers. She's so cute. Soujyuro frowned, unsure of what to say. Did not know what the interaction had been like for Alice, but for him it had felt special, sacred almost. The question was why and for whom was he so concerned?
ほら、白状しなさいってば。隠し事なんて似合わないわよ。
Her disconcerting smile moved even closer. Soujyuro did not look like he was able to stay silent much longer, as he would eventually come to realize Aoko Hazaki had a sometimes troubling propensity to gossip.
まあ、あの子と何を話したかは言わないけど、今の青崎に比べれば 花もロマンもなかったのだけは確かかな。さっきまでは青崎が鬼みたいだったから、いいもんだなって気がつかなかった。
Blunt. He stared directly into her eyes as he spoke. Oh! Aoko nearly leapt out of her seat in panic. Now that he pointed it out, she realized their bodies were practically touching, right?
仕方ないでしょ。この方が効率良かったんだから。
Oh, absolutely. Break him with the titties. Just shove them in his face and he'll die. That's the way to do it.
あんた横にいないとすぐ間違えるし。
I mean, he goes to his part-time job pretty okay. Aoko stood up as she lashed back at him.
そうだね。なんか昔みたいで久しぶりに
Oh,
集中できた。
that's sweet.
これが異例中の異例っていうのが本当に残念だ。
余裕あるじゃない。その分じゃ今日のテストだけじゃなくアリスとの話し合いもうまくいきそうね。ソジュロ。
Bro, I need... I'm not saying... I can't say that.
あ、それはもちろん。
His cool It's so cool! His cool response caught her off guard, and for a moment she was at a loss for words. She meant it sarcastically, and yet he responded with a warm smile.
方針変更だ。まずは近くで話しかけてみるよ。
Yeah, let's do it.
嫌なことはいずれ終わるって分かったから。
Aoko remained in a state of silent shock as he spoke and rose to his feet. She could not help but feel a reluctant respect for what seemed to be his newfound confidence and competence.
とりあえず今日は一人で帰ってアリスと話してみる。青崎は放課後生徒会だろ。
He was right. It was their last meeting before winter break. Normally would have waited until the meeting ended or else gone straight to his part-time job. This was part of Aoko's plan to make sure he and Alice were never alone in the mansion together.
待った。まさかあんた一人でアリスとやり合うつもりなの？
別にやり合うつもりはないぞ。し合っても勝てないだろう、アリスには。
His reply made complete sense, which floored her.
でも、青崎がいたら話が複雑になるのは目に見えてるんだ。そんなわけで、今日はゆっくり飛び丸の相手でもしててくれ。
本気？
He felt like he was being tested, but nodded nonchalantly nonetheless. Knowing how grave the situation really was, Aoko was not sure how to respond to his apparent lack of concern. The morning light coming through the window marked a stark contrast between the two. Which stood bathed in light. Which lurked in darkness. That went without saying. The silence lasted for only a brief moment. Staring at him gravely, she said.
そう。なら止めはしないわ。
That was all she's had. Her dry tone hid the significance of their pregnant silence. I have never heard that term before. Pregnant as in to be full? Full of silence? Bursting silence? What? Huh. Revealing the slightest sign of discord.
なんか怒ってないか、青崎。
別に。それで何か考えはあるの？下手な考えは通じないわよ、あの子には。
Soujyuro furrowed his brow in deep thought. He knew it would be hard to get closer through talk alone. In fact, it felt nearly impossible.
言葉で落ちないやつは物で釣れ。
Okay, give her the broom, bro. Kinomi had been the voice of wisdom and folly for him countless times. Incidentally, Kinomi had been referring to Aoko at the time he shared that pearl of wisdom. Soujyuro had had that distinct impression that trying to buy Aozaki's kindness with gifts would not end well.
大体アリスの趣味もわからないじゃないか。考えてみると、今の自分と彼女はまるで接点が。
Can't wait for them to just suddenly become besties, like just out of nowhere. Like it just turns out that they have the most like chemistry possible. Soujyuro crosses arms at a loss.
いつものことだけど何も考えてなかったわけね。
It's the Sonoji method, bro.
でもまあ、あれこれ考えなくてもいいと思う。アリスにはあれこれ説明するとか、分かってもらおうとか。
He pondered intently as he tried to put his vague thoughts into something concrete, but he did not spend much time in thought. With a nod, he concluded.
要は、俺が彼女を好きかどうかってことじゃないか?
I suppose that's an interesting way to phrase it. He articulated that which is often so hard to say, with surprising clarity and calm. It was certainly a prerequisite for the task he hoped to achieve. He had no hope of making her appreciate him with words, or with acts of giving with the expectation of reciprocation. He simply wished to get to know her better because he liked her. This was his honest, unconventional intention. Uncontrived intention. And it reflected the purity of his heart. Truly, what a man. But whether that was in his best interest or not was another story altogether. Calculation and compromise, selfishness and conflict. Purity such as his often irritated people who believed that morals went against human nature. Or rather, people who were inevitably forced to believe it. Aoko silently walked away without responding to what Soujyuro said. Her long hair swung from side to side as she passed him.
Ozaki?
Noting her strangely cold manner, he called out to her. However, she was already opening the door to leave.
下でシャワー浴びてくるから、あなたは自分の部屋に戻ってて。
Her words lacked any expressive inflection. In his confusion, all Soujyuro could do was
いい
nod.
けど、やっぱり怒ってないか、青崎。
Emotion returned to her face as he spoke. Yet it was not the typical irritated look to which he had grown so accustomed.
そうね。あんた流に言えば、多分私は怒ってる。
Yeah, sometimes I don't understand her. I'm just like Shinjiro. What? Soujyuro.
何に対してのものかは、あんまり言いたくないけど。
Interesting. Well, this is just a moment where you just have to let it simmer and just leave. It sucks, but I've been there. Poor Soujyuro did not even realize that he himself was the reason. Was it because, like did I sense jealousy? She looked at him, and for an instant he witnessed an emotion on her face of which he had never seen the likes of before.
じゃあね。これが最後になるかもしれないから、お別れぐらいは言っておくわ。
What? What? I'm so
あ
confused.
なたはアリスを甘く見すぎてる。
Oh. Okay. Now I get it. It's basically the equivalent of like, yeah, you're cooked. You're dead. There's nothing I could do to stop it. I've tried my best, and it's over.
でも、それが同時にあんたの強みなのよね。私たちには毒にしかならないけれど。
That's mean, dude. Her steps were audible as she walked away on the other side of the wall. The corridor must have been nearly freezing without any central heating, but Aoko seemed perfectly comfortable.
なんで私から出ていくんだ
Okay. Yeah, this is my room. You get out.
順番が逆普通先に出てくのはそっちじゃない
Aoko promptly kicked Soujyuro out of her room. Once again, the wooden door closed with a slam. The corridor was not as cold as he had expected. Not quite as bad as a freezer, at least. Okay. Well, I'm waiting for the Alice stuff. The second day of exams ended and Soujyuro was on his way back to the mansion. The road grew steeper and the woods thicker as he made his way up the familiar slope. People in town called it not a hill, but a mountain, simply because it took over 20 minutes to climb. That would be a pain in the ass. This did not sit well with Soujyuro, for whom a mountain was something that could not be overcome so easily. The road was paved, for one thing, and the canopy overhead let in plenty of sunlight to guide the way. He's like, this isn't a traditional mountain path. The fuck are you guys LARPing? None of the inclines were especially steep, and no animals lurked in the underbrush. There's no chance of losing his way. No reason to worry about getting lost.
情けない。まだ未練ばっかりだ。
Soujyuro quietly reprimanded himself for getting so wrapped up in his own little world. Yeah, there's more important things afoot. In the past few weeks since moving here, he had been constantly comparing the town with his former mountain home. Normally, he would not get upset over it, but in recent days, since meeting Aoko, as it happened, he had become rather hung up on the differences. The reasons for this eluded him, but he knew that Aoko was a force that could not be stopped. This naturally made him want to quicken his own pace. The mansion where they both lived was the antipathy of her lively personality. It stood out like a sore thumb, even in a town like Misaki. Some people said it was haunted. There were no ghosts per se, but it was inhabited by magicians, so their claims were closer to the truth than they could have possibly known.
そういえば、幽霊と魔法使いっていうのはどっちが常識外れな
I
の
feel like personally a ghost would be more surprising to me. Lost in contemplation as he was, the boy failed to notice how his own lack of familiarity with city life played into the equation. In any case, none of his pondering changed what needed to be done. Tomorrow was the last day of exams. That meant he only had a little longer until Aoko stopped taking responsibility for his safety. Soujyuro slipped between the trees, encircling the mansion, and walked down the naturally tree-lined avenue that led him to the front door.
よし。
Taking a deep breath, he stepped across the threshold. The drawing room was where he expected to find Alice. However, he found himself face to face with the most unexpected scene. A few steps in, and he arrived at the large foyer extending from the mansion's entrance. But one thing was clearly out of place. The foyer of the mansion was like a hall in a medieval castle. It was illuminated by the cold winter sun casting down through the skylight, unaided by artificial light. The wooden tiles smelled of the outdoors. What the hell? And there was Alice dressed all in black, huddled against a column, so enormous it resembled a sharply cornered tree trunk. Did she fall asleep? The mansion was quite literally supporting her frail body. Like a mother's lullaby or a gently rocking cradle. She has been focused on the library, so, Oh, is she good? I guess she's sleeping. The heavy atmosphere within this old building suppressed even the slightest air, almost as if warding away any disturbance to her slumber. There she slept in the shadows of home. Hidden away from outsiders, her sleeping figure was enough to mesmerize anyone who laid eyes upon her. Soujyuro instinctively looked up at the ceiling out of sheer awkwardness. He wanted to surprise her, but not in this way. Her slender frame lay asleep by the fireplace. The scene was as beautiful as a painting, yet hard on his heart at the same time. Her slumber seemed breathless. She was too still, with not even a hint of movement. And yet, slumped against that frigid column under the cold winter sky, happiness appeared to be her blanket. A passerby would not be blamed for thinking she was in the most peaceful state of eternal slumber. Death. Soujyuro spoke to himself as he gazed idly upon her. Bringing her a blanket or something warm did not so much as cross the boy's mind. Instead, as odd as it sounds, the first thing he thought to do was to go prepare some tea. He made sure to be as quiet as possible as he opened the drawing room door. On the table, waiting for him, were 3 pills. They were the medicine Aoko required him to take every day when he arrived home. Gulping down the vaguely sweet pills and continuing on to the kitchen, he selected a box of tea from among the many in the cabinet and brewed enough for 2 people. Alice was still asleep when he returned to the foyer. Careful not to make any noise, he crouched close to the ground. He was startled by how cold the floor felt through his pants. He thought it'd be warmer here by the fireplace, but then again, he recalled how Aoko had referred to it as a useless hole in the wall. What was likely the case was that neither she nor Alice knew how to use it properly. Oh, they're gonna have a tea party together. Oh, that's cute. That's adorable. What the fuck? After taking the teacups from the tray and placing one in front of each of them, Soujyuro carefully pulled his textbook on classical literature from his satchel. Maybe they can bond on literature somehow, like Soujyuro could get invested in that. He could still see her angry face from this morning. The reason for her anger was still as much a mystery as the unusual look he saw briefly come across her face. In any case, one thing was certain, he needed to start studying for tomorrow. Thanks to Aoko's instruction, today's exams went well enough, but tomorrow's would be an even more formidable challenge. After how angry she was this morning, he could not expect her to help him again tonight. Yeah, it's a lose-lose, my brother. He complained under his breath as he cracked open his textbook. Apparently, he intended to spend his time in this fashion until Alice finally awoke. The sound of the pages turning was the only audible noise in the grand hall. There was no ticking of clocks or rustling of leaves to disturb her sleep. After a few hours, Soujyuro quietly rose to his feet. The light that filled the foyer was beginning to turn from white to red. Oh, she's still asleep. He glanced again at Alice as he stretched his stiff back. She slept in perfect stillness, just as she had this entire time. Soujyuro arched his brow in speculation. He had no idea what a normal sleeping schedule was like, so he had no idea as to whether he should wake her. As if reaching the end of a long train of thought, Soujyuro gave a quick nod of his head and took his leave of the mansion. What if that's a trap or something? That was a trap? Today work was a shift to the Chinese restaurant in Misaki shopping district, the Mad Bear. Maybe it wasn't a trap. I don't know. The uniforms had been made by someone with an obvious preference for garish colors. The orange apron was emblazoned with a cartoonish polar bear slashing a walk in two with its powerful claws. The design resembled warning signs about wild animals seen in the mountains. It stood out in Misaki for its one-of-a-kind originality. Got some mapo tofu right now. That's more like beans, bruh. This was the Chinese restaurant, the Mad Bear. Aside from its name and logo, the restaurant was the type of cheap hole-in-the-wall dive that could be found anywhere. It faced competition from the ever-increasing number of chain restaurants, though it had managed to last longer than other dining spots, having received rave reviews on a regular basis. The Mad Bear prioritized the personal touch, focusing on the local client, LA, and thus made a point to offer home delivery. Ooh! It had earned the affectionate moniker QKS, the Quick Killer Shop. Stop. Making these deliveries was Soujyuro's responsibility for the time being. Places in Misaki within cycling distance fell under his domain. Anything beyond that was handled by a more experienced staff member on the legendary 50cc King Salmon motorbike. But anyway.
ヤシロギのダチから聞いたんだけどな。
What's that? Delivery workers were not out on deliveries. They spent their shift bussing? I usually call it busting, but I guess bussing is the one. I guess I'm dumb. Bussing tables or washing dishes. The dinner rush was yet to come, and Soujyuro and his fellow delivery boys were shooting the breeze while washing dishes in the back.
聞いてるか、しずき。
聞いてるよ、木の実。
The two were elbow deep in a giant sink as they enthusiastically scrubbed. At least that was what they pretended to do while they gossiped.
和食のケニアだけじゃねえんだってよ。三崎町の大帝都にもメシアンにもその手の注文があったらしいぜ。そんなに肉が欲しいなら下市に行けばいいのにな。なんだって生肉だの大物の鮭丸ごとだのを出前させやがるのか。
Beats me, man.
どうよ。こう露骨にヤバそうな話じゃね？ワニとかアザラシでも飼ってるんじゃねえかな、そいつ。
Name a three-letter animal. You said alligator.
他に比べてみると確かに珍しい話だと思う。ところで木の実、ワニってなんだ？
ワニはワニだろう。だっせ、実物見たことないのかよ。まあ俺もねえけどな。
Yeah, I don't really blame Soujyuro for not knowing what an alligator is.
今度ガクガク動物ランドのアフリカ特集ビデオを貸してやるから見とけよ。
This was a familiar pattern of conversation between the two, especially now Kinomi was used to Soujyuro's lack of general knowledge. Their banter was interrupted by the delivery phone. The manager snapped up the receiver and quickly jotted down the order and address. Once he hung up, everyone in the kitchen did their best to avoid making eye contact with him. Nobody wanted to go rushing out for delivery on such a cold day.
Shizuki-kun, ちょっと遠いけど
Aww.
配達をお願い。
The manager singled Soujyuro out for the task, seemingly unfazed by his staff's laziness.
はい、これ届けるもののリスト。異例だからあまり他のバイトには他言しないようにね。
The manager tore the sheet with the order and address written on it from his memo pad. Soujyuro took one look at it before a grimace quietly spread across his face.
マネージャー？
なんだい？
The manager stared right back at him as if he could tell what it was he wanted to say. Is it at the Koenji estate for the final, like, that'd be
君
crazy.
の疑問はもっともだ。しかしまあ、長いことこの商売をやっていると、時にはこんなバカな話が。じゃ、冷蔵庫から品物持ってくるから。
Soujyuro stared in admiration as the manager dressed in black marched out of the kitchen in his all-business way. Nowhere was free from the odd occurrence now and then. Especially working in a food place, you're bound to experience some bullshit. So where are we going? What do we... are we delivering food?
遅い。
Oh. It was after 10 at night. Soujyuro had taken a small detour on his way home from work and now faced an outraged Aoko, as expected. Seeing her so visibly irritated made him feel a rush of relief. He did not know why she was angry, but he could tell it was a different type of anger than what he saw earlier that morning.
遅いって、まだ10時になったばかりだろう。どうしたんだ、青崎。
He sat down the cardboard box he had been carrying in his arms and glanced toward the fireplace. The sleeping girl was there no more.
違うわ。もう10時になったの間違いでしょ。あんたってほんと自分がどんな状態にあるか分かってないのね。いいから今に来て。
Oh. Does it have to do with Alice? She walked briskly to the other room without pausing, leaving Soujyuro standing in confusion, head tilted to one side, like a puppy dog. He proceeded to pick his box back up and follow after her eagerly. He removed his coat and hung it on a hanger as he entered the living room. Apparently today was one of those days where Alice kept herself locked away in her room. On the table were the familiar pills.
説明しなかった私も悪いけど、あなたも帰ってくる時間は守ってよね。
He has to
こっ
take
ち
the
はその
pills
つもり
at
で作ってるん
10?
だから。
Aoko handed him the pills and a glass of water with an expectant look on her face.
薬なら出かける前に飲んだけど、体の調子だって悪くないし、そんなに慌てることか？
は？なんだって私たちがあんたの健康を気にかけなくちゃいけないのよ。
Fuck your feelings.
勘違いしてるようだけど、 あんたが帰ってくるたびに飲んでるのって平たく言えば毒よ。
Am I supposed to like? I guess I shouldn't be surprised.
効き目は半日すると出てくるんだけど、その前に新しい毒薬を飲んでおかないと古い毒が体に回って
You
ばっか
could
り
have told him
いくって
this
寸法ね。
before. Imagine he gets like he can't come home because of something that happens at work. He's dead. Like, come on, you can't do that.
アリスのやつ、これぐらいしないと信用できないって言い張ったのよ。
This is not okay.
ほら、分かったらさっさと飲む。
What the fuck?
ま、私もこれ面倒だと思うし。近いうちもっと形のある方法を考えてみるから、それまでこの方法で我慢して。
言ってることは支離滅裂だが、とにかく今まで良くないものを飲んでたんだな。
You could say that. Soujyuro took the pills from her and gulped it down. The fact that it was poison gave him no pause at all. And as for his roommate's tyrannical behavior, he showed no signs of standing up to it.
まったく、毒を持って毒を制するなんて、また古風な真似するな。青崎もアリスも。
I see. Okay, well, I guess I understand it a bit more now that he's clarified that. Soujyuro's face relaxed him into a smile upon finding the funny side. I wouldn't find it funny, but that's the Sonoji method. Aoko was utterly dumbfounded as to how he could be happy at a time like this.
今日帰りが遅れたのはアパートまで荷物を取りに行っていたからなんだ。そういうことなら電話の一つでもすればよかった。
荷物ってまさかそれじゃないでしょうね。
Soujyuro nodded emphatically as she pointed incredulously at the cardboard box in his hands.
住んでいないのに家賃を払うのは馬鹿らしいから今日で引き上げてきた。一応いつでも戻れるように
Yeah, that
話
makes
はつけてある
sense.
から
Big
3ヶ
brain.
月ぐらいは大丈夫だよ。
家賃？あ、そっか、そうよね。私ってばなんでそんなことを忘れてたんだろう。アリスが聞いたら喜ぶわ。
No! No! That's the way. Pay her money. Give her money. Give me money! A smile blossomed across their faces as they say. It was the open, bold-faced look of a child who just came up with a mischievous plan. Soujyuro shook with fear at the thought of what that smile might bring his way.
けどずいぶん少ないのね、荷物。段ボール1箱分しかないの？
そうかな。十分多いだろう。
ちょっと前に戻ったわ。珍しく食後もここに残ってたんだけど。
She gave Soujyuro a meaningful look while continuing to smile that sinister smile.
待ちきれなかったって何を？
そりゃあ、アリスが眠ってるのをいいことに在庫のないフォションとブルーキャリコを勝手に使ってくれたどこかの誰かさんにお仕置きするためなんじゃな
But
い？
he made it for her. It wasn't supposed to be bad.
フォッションってあの
No.
お茶の葉？
When you try and you try and you fail.
そう、私もびっくりしたけどね。アリスがどっかで寝入るのはよくあることだけど、紅茶を用意して眠るなんてのは初めてだったから。どんな心境の変化か知りたくて起こしたら、アリスの方が驚いてたわ。
Soujyuro clapped his hands together as if remembering something important. He had forgotten to clean up the tea before leaving. No. Oh man, he's cooked. He's cooked. He's dead. Like there's nothing left of him. He's gonna be eviscerated, brother. Oh man. Poor Sono.
そうか。それじゃあアリスは怒っていただろう。
Are you for real? I see. How mad was she?
当然、コマドリがとばっちりでドリブルされてたしね。
Well, he tried. He ruined it. It's over. Like, there's nothing you can do. It's over. I'm sorry, but just fucking, he's dead, dude.
ああ、俺でも怒る。片付けをきちんとしないなんて。
I don't think that's the
だらしな
point,
いにも程がある。
my friend. Soujyuro harshly scolded himself for his failure.
論点違う。あのね、寝顔を間近で見られたから怒ってるのよ、アリスは。
Oh! I guess man, I'm Soujyuro too. I had no idea. Wow. I don't know if this is a Japanese thing, but I swear to God, in a lot of Japanese media I've seen, girls are always freaked out if, like, they're, like, asleep in front of somebody and they just so happen to, like, be a witness to it. I don't know if that's just a cultural thing, but I swear it's not that big of a deal here. Because, I mean, when you watch someone sleep, you're not just staring at them the whole time. You just glance at them every now and again to check how they're doing, you know?
え、そうかな。アリスはそういうの
I
は
guess
気
you
に
were
しない
wrong,
と
brother.
思うんだけど。
あんたはそうかもしれないけど、私たちは気にするの。
Man. Ako's glare was enough to make glass shatter. There was an indescribable intensity in the way she said that.
それは青崎たち限定の話か。
世間一般での常識よ。自分が気
That's
にしない
true.
からって他
I
人
can
もそうだと
definitely
思
agree
って
with
る
that.
でもそれだったらロビーで寝ているアリスにだって問題ないか。見かけたら放っておけないだろう、あんなの。
その心意気は立派だけど、そこはそれ。この
Yeah,
館の持
that's
ち
just
主
how
は
it
彼
is.
女だから。
There's no change in that.
この洋館内であなたが出会ったあらゆる不義不始末、失敗失態の責任は宗十郎に押し付けられるの。この意味、わかる？
Okay, I get it. It's okay. Ako's question sent Soujyuro into a trance of deep thought until finally he uttered.
つまりここはアリスの自治領なんだな。
Yeah, basically.
はい、よくできました。正確には私とアリスのだけどね。領主は何をやっても許されるってことよ。
She smiled as she spoke and plopped herself down on the sofa. Oh, sweet! I've earned free dominoes! I'm just gonna fucking notification. Congratulations! You've earned points for free dominoes. The notion of this being their kingdom made him realize he actually had no idea what the girls had come from or their family backgrounds.
青崎、君ご両親はどうしてるんだ？
Wow, we're actually gonna get into this? He inadvertently blurted out, this being the question foremost on his mind.
生きてるわよ。三崎町から下りに4駅行った東川ってところの地主。死は祖父だけど、今は隠居して両親と一
I
緒
mean,
に
we
住ん
started
で
the
るよ。
game with her grandfather.
そう聞くとなんだか普通の家庭だ。
Normal. So Dread had imagined something more outrageous for a family of magicians.
両親はね、父さんにはあんまり魔術回路は作られなかったみたいだから。
Double the power.
私には
That'd be
二世
some
代
shit.
分の潜在能力があるって祖父は言ってるけど、宗十郎の期待してるような一族はどっちかっていうとアリスの方よ。私と違って英国出身だからね、彼女。
Oh, she's actually from England. That makes sense. I don't know how she... Oh, well, duh, she's Japanese. She's half Alice. So I'm guessing one... I'm a fucking idiot. I'm like, how does she know Japanese? Dumbass. Aoko offered nothing more, as if to suggest that was as far as she was willing to reveal for now. So Dread insisted on talking to Alice directly rather than hearing things secondhand, so chose not to go back on his word by pushing this topic further.
詳しくは本人から聞きなさい。アリスの紅茶好きもそこから来てるんだし。
That's something to know. We could talk about, like, crumpets and biscuits and cookies and what other stuff do the British like? I don't know.
そういえば、なんで今日に限ってリーフティーなんか入れたの？ティーバッグ
He
を使
wanted
っ
to
た
make
方
it
がま
extra
だマシだったで
special.
しょうに。
青崎がそっちの方がいいって言ったじゃないか。
Exactly, that's so
アリスは紅
sweet.
茶にうる
He
さいっ
was
て。
thinking about her. Aoko was momentarily at a loss for words. He seemed so oblivious most of the time, but apparently he was attentive to some details, at least selectively.
ま、いいわ。それより明日の放課後だけど、また一
I
人
sure
で帰って
hope
くれない？
so.
年明けの行事があるんだけど、その場しのぎで行った餅つき大会が通っ
Mochi
ちゃって
making
さ。
festival?
明日
Okay.
も忙しいのよ、私。
I've never had mochi, so I would try some. Soujyuro nodded in acceptance. In fact, he had already been planning to do so before she even asked.
それはいいけど、体は大丈夫か、青崎。昨日から寝てないだろ
夕方に3時間ちょい仮眠を取ってから調子はいいわ。そういうあんたこそ体は持つんでしょうね。
Oh, they are studying
もう
again
少
for
し
the
したら
finals?
昨日の続き始めるわよ。
Dang, I don't think Soujyuro expected that. She meant the all-night cramming session, of course. Needless to say, Soujyuro was more than likely to struggle given that he too had not slept a wink. All he could do was give a relieved smile. He thought back to the days just after he transferred here, when she watched his every move from the sidelines and showed a startling amount of concern for him.
いいよ。どのみち苦労するのは青崎の方だし、異例中の異例はありがたく受け取っておくと
He's
し
the
よう。
exception among exceptions. His cheery response grated on her just a little.
ほんと、くだらないことだけはしつこく覚えてるんだから。
She heaved her shoulders in exasperation and dropped her head as an excuse to look away from the beaming smile on his face. The following day, the last day of finals had ended without a hitch. That final December hurdle was finally a thing of the past, for all but one student, that is. Soujyuro, the greatest challenge was yet to come. He bid farewell to his classmates, all jittery with excitement for the last day of term, and headed into the Shiro Inozuka woods. The white dog? Shiro Inozuka. I don't know how to translate that. I wish I could. White dog something road woods. The road home was no different than yesterday. Like he was reliving yet another day of striding up that hill. Here we are. Chat, we're here. Yet today, there was a fierce determination in his steps. Today was his last chance, and he wanted nothing more than to talk to the girl. Listen to my story. This may be our last chance. He did not care if she was cruel to him or ignored him, nor whether Aoko was being truthful when she said that she could trap him in a mirror land or something like that. All he really cared about was having the chance to speak with her, face to face. But nothing is ever that simple. To tell the truth, what he found upon finally entering the mansion was not wholly unexpected. Is she asleep
よ
again?
く寝る子だな、本当。
Wow. She's not really giving him a chance, is she? That's unfortunate. Is something the matter, though? Like, The deja vu he was experiencing made him dizzy. Faced with an exact reenactment of the previous day, he could not help but blurt out what he was thinking. Alice was sleeping by the fireplace, just as she had done yesterday. The way her legs draped to one side resembled those of a princess in a children's book. She looked more comfortable than she had the day before. Miraculously, he had a rare flash of insight that enabled him to read the situation more clearly.
学校で飛び丸は一人何をしているんだろう。
Upon glancing back at the entrance, he made his decision, took a deep breath, and rolled up his sleeves. If today was a reenactment of yesterday, then he supposed he would play along with that idea. Soujyuro removed his shoes and headed for the kitchen. He was off to prepare another ill-fated pot of tea. Since she was angry about him using her precious falchion, this time he turned to Jackson's fruit and herb brew. Sadly, this was about as much as Soujyuro could manage to amend his behavior. He had failed to realize that it was not the brand of tea that had landed him in hot water, but rather his incorrect brewing method. Oh, he's trying so hard. After filling the pot with tea, he carried it back to the foyer. His breath was visible in the cold air as he sat himself down by the fireplace. Soujyuro took a sip of the fruity tea he had prepared for himself and pulled his textbook from his bag. Exams were over now, but he had been instructed to take extra classes for the subjects from day one of school. Quite inevitable. The foyer was warmer than outside, but still far from comfortable. It was enough to make anyone yearn for some source of warmth. Soujyuro dove into his electronics textbook in the winter-chilled hall. The class was not very popular, which is why it had been recommended to him in the first place. The fact that everyone who took it started on equal footing made it more appealing to him than other classes.
けど青崎の言う通り
He downed the rest of the tea, having no appreciation for its flavor, and refilled his cup. The tea was still warm, since the ceramic teapot had excellent heat retention.
文字で物事を覚えるのは苦手みたいだ
He vaguely recalled their conversation as his eyes advanced across the page. The lack of lighting in the foyer was forcing him to rely on illumination from the skylight. The light cut into the room at a diagonal angle in such a way as to divide the foyer into light and dark areas, with the fireplace in shadow. The room resembled ancient ruins covered in ash, or perhaps the quiet, forgotten world of a faded fairy tale. Time slipped on by within the white walls of this room hidden away from the sun. Wow, evening just comes and goes and it's time for part-time work? Damn. I was really hoping for them to talk. The minutes passed slowly for some time until the sound of a textbook slamming shut brought the room back to reality. Soujyuro stretched his stiff back and eagerly got started on cleaning up. He put his textbook back in his bag, placed his cup on the tray, leaving Alice sitting in front of her on the floor.
バイトの時間だ
He said unceremoniously. He spoke as if to convince himself that he had no other choice as he prepared to leave the sleepy foyer behind. But before he could, a sound behind him stopped him in his tracks. He turned around with his bag under his arm and tray in his hands, so as not to cause even a ripple in her teacup. He greeted her. Finally, I've been waiting for this, dude. Come on, I need...
Yeah.
In a light, easygoing manner, she remained seated next to the fireplace like a black-eyed sleeping beauty. Her face was as still as a statue, almost no different than it had been in slumber. Looking at Alice now, he realized just how different she and Aoko really were. Aoko communicated her feelings openly, even if he never could quite tell where they came from. Her trademark expression of irritation would keep him guessing as to the reason she was angry, but to her credit, her emotional state was always clear. Alice, on the other hand, was completely unreadable. She might be angry, or then again, sad. He could not tell either way.
何のつもり
Her question gave him a sinking feeling in the pit of his stomach. I'd be nervous too. He could not decide whether it was an animosity or perplexity that he heard in her voice. If the former, this was likely to turn into a replay of their interaction from the other night. An image of the shattered red bottle sprang to his mind. Soujyuro knew his response would be extremely important, and after struggling for a few moments, he finally worked up the courage to say something. Just not the correct thing, unfortunately.
そうだな一口じゃ説明できないから座るよ
Oh no. He had no idea what the correct approach would be, so he simply did whatever came into his mind instead. She gave him no response. Her face said that she detested his presence, but he plowed ahead regardless. Soujyuro took a seat and set down the tray once more. Their eyes met. Her inscrutable gaze was enough to turn most people away. But the target of her animosity appeared not to notice it at all.
それで何
ああ遅くなったけどこうして話がしたかったんだアリスと
Despite having suggested that it would take time to explain, he managed to sum things up succinctly.
私と青子とではなく
んそうだね青崎とはもっと話したいところだけどそれよりは3人で話してみたい
Alice found herself out of kilter, unable to read his true intentions. Soujyuro continued on, failing to notice her bewilderment.
青崎は普段からアリスとは会話がないって言うんだそれが俺のせいなら困るし俺のせいじゃないならもっと困る
Oh, he's like, why are you two so like, oh, you guys just
せっかく同じ場所にいるのに会話がないなんてもったい
so
ないと思うん
wholesome,
だ
such a wholesome boy. Each word he spoke was heavy with emotion. Alice remained utterly unable to discern this boy's intentions. All she could parse was that there was something he wanted from her. But what could that be? What she found even stranger was that he was not speaking to her from a place of fear.
あなたは 私が怖くないの？
ああ、だってそう言えるほど俺は君をよく知らない。
Her gleaming eyes looked like they were made of polished quartz. His response had not been what she expected. He spoke with pure honesty and unfettered truth. Such boldness, however, did not actually upset her. Their conversation ground to a halt. If you could even call it a conversation in the first place. Alice grew tense, as if displeased by the strangely comfortable moment of silence between them. Soujyuro endured her cold stare, showing no sign of flinching.
話。
Whoa!
私と話をしたいと言ったでしょ。なら好きにしてみたら。
Wow. It was more a challenge than an invitation. They had neither a topic on hand nor were they intimate enough to strike up a casual conversation. Nonetheless, her challenge hung in the air, waiting for a response.
じゃああの鳥の話を。ほらそこにいる青い鳥、たまに見かけるんだけど、君の飼い鳥か？それともほらなんて言ったかな、プロイだっけ？
He remembers.
あの鳥もアリスの使い魔？
Damn, Angie. Her eyes let slip for a moment a very natural response. It was annoyance, such as that which one might feel toward a troublemaker.
あれもプロイだけど、私とは何の関係もないダッチョウ。
It's like, I
随分
fucking
古
hate
く
that
からい
bird.
るだけで、私もよく知らないわ。
ん？じゃあ勝手に住んでるのか、この家に？
勝手になんて私が許すはずがないでしょ。ロビンは本当に役に立たないけど、あんなのでも母から譲り受けたも
Oh
のだか
wow.
ら。
Okay, that's
失敗続
something
き
to
でも
learn.
特別に住まわせてあげてるの。
We heard about her father once, and now her mother once, so...
そっか、安心した。ここに住むの役に立たなきゃダメってわけでもないんだね。
Alice was like, I kind of want to laugh. That was funny. She turned away in silence to avoid looking at his hapless grin. Thus began Sojuro's very lengthy monologue. Started with his part-time job, then moved on to the school. Next came the amusement park and random gossip around town, and the last subject of rent. He spent all of 20 minutes on mindless small talk. Then he ran out of things to say and finally stopped.
ごめん、アルバイトがあるから、もう行くよ。
And that was that. After finally getting this long-awaited chance to talk to her, he realized he had no exit plan in place. So he returned to the tray to the kitchen, placed his bag in the foyer, and headed for the door. She had never seen the boy so candid, which was why, overcome with surprise, she found herself calling out to him.
待って。
She had no reason to do so, and yet she called out anyway.
何？
その今日はポットがあったけど。
うん。昨日の反省点だったから。結局使ったのは自分だけだけど。
そう。そのポットはコーヒーとの兼用だから。
Oops. Oh, I didn't mean to skip that. I'm sorry. Sojuro's eyes grew wide with shock. Now he remembered that there had been all sorts of cups and teapots in the cupboard, each one specially designed for a different type of tea.
なかなかに奥深い。あれかな。慣れないことはするもんじゃないってことか。
She let out a vexed sigh.
どうして私を起こさなかったの？
Either she had not heard what he said, or she had been waiting this whole time for a chance to ask him that. In any case, her question abruptly interrupted his stream of thought. He fell silent with introspection. The thought of waking her had not so much as crossed his mind, either that day or the previous one.
言って。起こす気も起きることも期待していなかったのは。
Her eyes were filled with animosity. Oh wow, okay. Lies were useless against such an all-piercing gaze. The setting sun transformed the foyer into a battle of life and death. Lies or deceptive answers would not be permitted. Amidst the palpable tension that filled the room, where any move, wrong or otherwise, was likely to only get him killed. He felt pain rather than fear. Alice's voice was icy cold, preemptively rejecting any response he was to give. Maybe that's the front that she puts up, maybe. The boy vaguely imagined a newborn chick that had fallen from the nest, struggling to survive on its own. It gasped, hanging onto a thread of hope, yet detesting where that thread hung.
言わなきゃいけないか。
Alice nodded sharply.
じゃあ言うけど、別に深い考えがあったわけじゃない。単に寝た子を起こすのは良くないだろ。
Yeah.
冗談は聞いてないわ。
But I'm being serious.
冗談じゃないよ。眠っているのならそのままでいいと思ったんだ。話はしたいけど、それはまた目が覚めた次の機会にするべきだって。
随分と悠長なのね。青子があなたを守るのは今日までだって聞いているけど。
Oh wow, okay, this is getting... I'm starting to feel the tense. Like, this is getting tense, man.
私に取り入る機会はこれが最後なのに。
I suppose.
それとも、あれだけ忠告されておいて、まだ何も分かっていないの。
Yeah. He had not. He swore to her, agreed to her terms, and gone as far as to sit face to face with her to get to know her. Surely, he thought, this was enough to escape death. And she believed as a mage that his naive goodwill and simple-mindedness were all the reasons she needed to execute him. Trivial misunderstandings would only make things worse at this point.
そりゃ何もわからないよ。魔術とか魔法とか、たった数日でわかるもんか。
Damn.
はっきりしているのは、アリスも青崎も言ったことはきっちり守るってことだけだ。
なら、どうして？
Her gaze said what she really wanted to ask. She wanted to know why he did not beg for his life. She knew the answer. She saw the look on his face when he turned to leave without so much as trying to wake her. A look of resignation. What on earth had it meant?
どうしてって、そう言われても困る。そうだな。機会が訪れなかったのなら、それはそういうことだと思ったのかもしれない。
Jeez.
君の寝顔はそれぐらい、なんていうか、判断に困った。青崎とは違う意味で、簡単には関われないと思ったんだ。
Definitely some brutal honesty there. Soujyuro struggled to find the right words, but said what he was feeling in the moment anyway. He'd seen a sleeping witch of the wood who clearly needed someone's help, yet sought the help of no one.
そう。でも、しずきくんは関わろうとしているのね。その機会は訪れなかったの。
機会はやってきたよ。なんで、こっちも今日ぐらいは自分の勝手にして無茶をしたくなったんだ。
しずきくんの言う通りなら、私はあなたを拒絶するしかないのに。
まあ、そこが難しいところなんだけど。
Soujyuro glanced at the entrance. He had no reason to, he just felt an urge to do so.
多分、そこを解決したがってるのは俺だけじゃないと思うよ。
He muttered as if speaking to himself, but it was clearly meant for her to hear. Alice knew full well how poorly he had understood the situation. All this was one giant misunderstanding on his part. His tiny gesture of goodwill, pitiful and pure, resembled that of someone reaching out to help a dying kitten. For Alice, doing so would be akin to clutching the thorns of a rose. She felt pain in her chest for the first time in quite a while.
けど、私はあなたの同居を認めてはいないわ。
She addressed the floor at her feet to avoid showing him how she truly felt. If he had, he would have seen that her face looked just the way Aoko's had earlier.
だろうな。それはきっと 今は解決できない問題だ。でもそのうち何かの気まぐれであっさり終わるものかもしれ
Oh
ない。
my goodness.
だからその時までアリスはずっと俺を嫌っていていいんだと思う。
Her gasp of breath was like a response in itself. Suggests she could keep hating him. She had once wished to hear those words so dearly, if only the once. Wow, huh.
大体だぞ。アリスだけじゃなく青崎も同居を認めてない節があるじゃないか。だから認めてもらうなんて意気込み自体が間違いなんだ。どうあっても俺は青崎や君たちとは違うんだし、となるとあとは我慢してもらうしかない。難しい話だけど、一緒にいても邪魔にならないぐらいならその可能性は上がらないか？
Thinking that of course it was possible, but if it were that easy, none of this would have been necessary in the first place. Alice nodded in agreement. There was no way he could have planned for things to work out this well. But his plan in fact had worked, if inadvertently, from the moment the conversation began.
例えばあなたが隣にいても眠っていられるぐらい。
Damn! It's like, leave me alone, I don't ever want to see you.
そうだね。例えばの話。
Beaming, Soujyuro stood up and left the foyer. Alice did not stop him this time. He had a newfound spring in his step as he headed to work, but something gave him a moment's
実
pause.
際覗き見は趣味が悪いと思う。
Aoko. He complained aloud to make sure a certain someone heard him. Damn, bro. No more than 2 minutes had passed since Soujyuro left the mansion when a long-haired figure came creeping into the foyer. Aoko Azaki had been just outside the entire time he was dropping.
帰ってたの。
Alice is like, did you just fucking eavesdrop? I will drop kick you! With a sullen glare, Alice addressed the interloper. Aoko was shivering from head to toe after standing in the cold for so long. She deemed gloves an abomination and refused to wear them, except in the most extreme cold. As a result, her slender fingers were pitifully swollen and red.
ちょっと前にね。それでどうだったのアリス。随分と話してたみたいだけど。
She looked strangely elated as she blew on her hands to warm them. Alice was not fooled at all by Aoko's facade, clear from the ill-tempered look she wore on her face.
あなたがここまで過保護とは思わなかったわ。意地？それとも義務？
どっちかっていうと成り行きね。で、どうだったのよ結果は。気に食わなかったら実力行使に出るって言
Wow,
ってたじゃ
she
ん。
knew that it was okay. Well, he didn't piss her off enough, I guess. Is the victory here? Alice's mood was growing darker and darker the longer she had to look at Aoko's cheerful posturing. It all went back to their dinner together the previous night. After everything that happened in the foyer, Alice was both more suspicious of and intrigued by Soujyuro than ever before. She insisted Aoko let him walk home alone the next day. Oh wow, they planned that. She then used a concoction to fake her slumber and recreate the same scene as the previous. So what? Oh, this is very interesting. That was all a test to see what he would do. That's why she asked, like, why didn't you wake me up? Okay. They planned this? What? Sojuro's just being himself, man. Unaware of the whimsy going on. That portion of her plan went well, but the rest had veered totally off course. Did not help to know her roommate had savored every moment of it from the other side of the wall either. To make matters worse, Alice was frustrated at herself for letting such trivial matters bother her. She stared at the teacup still sitting on the floor. Her pale finger traced its cold rim.
青子の言う通り、害にはならない人ね。
Yeah.
あくまで今のところの
Yeah,
話だ
suddenly he just becomes the strongest mage in the Nausiverse. She forced a tone of indifference in order to hide her irritation with her apprentice. It was in this moment that Sojuro's fate was decided.
あら、それだけ？
That's
アリスにしては
it.
長く話してたのに。
Damn. The tease. Relentless, Aoko continued her line of questioning. Alice only stared back icily.
青子、あなた隠していたわね。
She just, yeah, okay. She voiced her displeasure at Aoko's behavior in no uncertain terms. Suddenly, the air in the foyer felt cold as ice. Damn. They stared at one another, each trying to guess the other's next move.
さすがね。よくそこに気がついたもんだわ。でも、こればかりは譲れないのよ。
Damn, so she tried to conceal her presence, but... Aoko widened her stance and glared at Alice.
何も全て奪うとは言っていないわ。そうね。あなたにも3割ぐらいは回すつもり。
30%? What? Completely unperturbed by Aoko's warlike posturing, a simple look was all Alice needed to keep her roommate in check.
10が3に化けちゃ、ちょっと黙ってらんないわね。
Wow, so... What? What did...
高望みは命取りよ、青子。
Damn, Icarus. Alice remained calm and dignified, not moving a muscle. It felt like hours passed as the two stared at each other in silence. Aoko was grinding her teeth in frustration. At this rate, their alliance would be in tatters before they even confronted their foe. Wow. So much intensity in the air. It's interesting to have characters like Alice and Aoko who are in a situation where she is her apprentice, but they don't necessarily like each other. It's hard to grasp, like, whether they do like or dislike is... It's a matter of perspective, I suppose, but in a way I feel like they don't really... They're not friends. It feels like just a literal, very strict and cold teacher-student relationship. Of happenstance, you know? And worst of all, she knew Alice had the upper hand, yeah, as always.
Catch.
She... What? Am I stupid? What? 30% of what? Aoko accepted her defeat with a tisk.
悔しいけど、アリスが6。私が4で手を打つわ。
There you go. Bargain. That's what I like to see. 60-40? It pained her to settle for less. Alice nodded in satisfaction.
そうね。家主は私だけど、彼を招いたのは青子だから。
Oh!
その代わり、家賃の取り立てはあなたの役割ね。
They decide. Wow. So Aoko really looked out for Soujyuro. She cares so much more than she lets on. They had this like agreement, this little test where Alice would pretend to sleep, and if she got angry, she would kill him. And if he managed to pass the test, then he would be able to live there, provided that there's rent. Give me rent. So Alice gets 60% of the rent money, and Aoko gets 40%. That's not a bad deal, honestly, considering like Aoko's the mentor here. I'd say that's pretty solid.
いいけど。ああ、情けない。こんなことなら錬金術でもかじっておくんだった。
Soujyuro
そうすればこんな思いをしなくても済んだのに。
そうでもないわ。彼らバブルが弾けて大変だって話よ。
Alice spoke with the confidence of someone with first-hand experience in such matters, yet Aoko only nodded absent-mindedly in response. Their bitter fight was over how to split the take of Sojuro's rent, now that he was officially going to move in. That is brilliant. I love it. This is genuinely filled with glee. Not the most becoming quarrel for a pair of mages. Forcing a boy to live with them and then demanding he pay rent was beyond extortion. It was truly vicious. It's absolutely awful. But they are mages after all. I suppose it works.
Demo, そんなセリフが出るってことは、アリスもようやく認めたってことね。
Kind of, not fully. Aoko is triumphantly satisfied with herself.
認めてはいないけど、公園での夜、 彼を結界で捕捉し
Damn.
なかった責
What a
任
sore
がある。
loser.
彼と約束をした青子だけを責められないでしょ。
約束か。
Aoko looked up at the ceiling as she recalled the night of the amusement park. Only a week at most had passed since then, but Aoko already felt that Sojuro's fate and her own had become intrinsically linked. Or perhaps they'd always been connected by fate since the moment they'd met. She could not see into the future, so there was no way to know for sure.
ま、縁とか運とかはともかく。変だけどいいやつよね、あいつ。
Oh, that's cute. They're beginning to accept him a little bit. Thought uttered to herself in self-confirmation more than to Alice. Alice could only look on in annoyance, perhaps in an attempt to voice her displeasure at her comment.
青子、あの傷を知ってる？
傷？
What? Oh yeah, the one on his neck. I'm glad that they're actually bringing that up, because he always wears that thing into... So I'm guessing, like, what does he have there? What happened? Did he get mauled by a tiger? Alice raised her slender fingers to her mouth as if to push the words back in. She had blurted it out in the heat of the moment. A secret that no one else was supposed to know, but that which one couldn't keep to herself. Oh wow. This is interesting. Aoko tilted her head in confusion.
So...
Alice is smiling because she noticed something that even... Huh. Alice looked relieved for some reason. Her sudden antipathy towards Aoko dissipated as well.
幸せな人。
Said Alice as she took a sip of her cold tea. She made no attempt to explain who was fortunate or why. A moment later, her beautiful face contorted in revulsion.
まず
That tea's like... Ugh. That's hilarious. She banded the cup to the floor once more, her black dress unceremoniously scrunched up as she stood. Just one sip of the underbrewed tea sent her fleeing to the drawing room to remove the bad taste from her mouth. As soon as she was gone, Aoko hesitatingly took the teacup in her own hands. It was almost certainly better left untasted, but she could not help but wonder how Sojuro's tea could arouse such a strong response. After one small sip, she returned it quietly to the floor.
だからティーバッグにしろって言ったのに。バカ。
The expression on her face was nearly identical to that of her roommates. Are you for... Oh my god, new book added to Arcades. We did it! We did it! Okay. Save. So I'm guessing we got an extra story in the archive. I do want to see what the next chapter is called at the very least. Oh. It's okay, so it's part 2 of Are You For Real, only it's in all caps and okay. Fair enough, I suppose. Well, I'm excited. This will be a good time. Let's look at the archive really quick. Oh hey, okay. Yeah, there's chapter 7. Martha. Oh, I wonder if that's the girl that Soujyuro was with. So that's our extra book, and we have half the book. Why did the frame rate just go down so much? But we have half the books on the shelf. Wow. We're getting there. We're making progress. Damn, brother. I was on chapter 6 just like a week ago, and now we're making progress, baby. We're doing it. Again, not much is happening, especially since Night of the Witches. I mean, it's mostly just character work, and I appreciate that, but I'm really looking forward to getting into some spicy shit. I have a feeling that it's gonna ramp up soon. And it's gonna be a non-stop, like, ride at that point. But yeah, man, I'm really enjoying this game. Here's the CGs. I guess this would be an easier way to check our progress, is to see how many pages of CGs we have. What? Oh my... Okay, a lot of shit must happen in this second half of the game, because that's a lot of okay. Oh, okay, these are... Okay, there's still a lot left, though. But man, is it gonna be crazy once we get to some of these... Yeah, okay. Yeah, because if you think about it, this chapter had this many CGs, so it's really only, like, the chapters that are filled with tons of shit. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes... Okay. I'm sure this game has a lot of foreshadowing that I've missed for later parts, but hey, I'm sure it'll be fun. Especially when you look at the dead cat. It's my favorite part of this video game. Anyway. Alice and Aoko have accepted Soujyuro a little bit more than before, provided that he pays rent. And to be fair, I feel like that works. Man, we've almost got all the songs, too. Oh. And I forgot how crazy some of the songs could be. What is Alice's theme again? Oh, it's that beautiful piece. That makes sense. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, everybody. I had a good time. I hope y'all weren't too bored, because I feel like this is a lot of just reading and not much happening, but I hope you enjoyed it for what it was. Regardless, my name is Hope. Wherever it is that you are, be sure to stay safe and take care out there. I appreciate y'all as always, and I will catch you on the next episode of Wish on the Holy Night, where we do Chapter 8. That's gonna be fun.